Mira Meta, Managing Director, Tomato Juice. All our very distinguished personalities present, our virtual audience, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, members of the press. Welcome to KadInvest 7.0.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to KadInvest 7.0, the summit. It is my pleasure to welcome you. My name is Hannah Bello. I'll be co-hosting with the beautiful Mujibade.
Thank you very much, Hannah. It's such an honor to be here to be the co-compare at the KadInvest 7.0. Just like my beautiful co-host said, my name is Mujibade. However, as soon as I arrived Kaduna, I got a new name. You can address me as Halima. Thank you very much. Thank you.
KadInvest is an annual economic and investment summit organized by the Kaduna State Government to showcase strategic investment opportunities in the state, as well as consolidate its existing investment gains to maximize the state's economic potential. Since its launch in 2016, the summit has assisted in drawing investments worth over $4 billion into the state in sectors such as agri and food processing, mining, light manufacturing, lots of other services, and so many others.
Now, just like my co-host said, the inaugural summit held in 2016 with the theme, Kaduna is open for business. And ever since then, Kaduna has been open for business. The summit has, however, continued to unfold unfailingly since then, with each theme changing every year to reflect the progress that has been recorded. In 2017, the theme was making Kaduna the investment destination of choice. At this point, may I respectfully recognize and welcome the 14th Emir of Kano, Khalifa Muhammadu Sanusi II. Thank you for joining us at KadInvest 7.0. It's an honor to have you here. Can we give him a round of applause as we welcome him officially to KadInvest 7.0? Thank you. You're welcome, Your Excellency. Once again, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us today. I was hired
Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency. We prioritize getting the state to the top as the best subnational for investment, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. Well, I'm just being modest, but we want to see the globe. I can confidently, clearly, and without reservation say that Kaduna is indeed getting there. This is because, in spite of the global economic challenges we have continued to witness significant transformations in the economic climate of the state that is unrivaled. Our investment promotion initiatives have been and continue to yield results. I'm again delighted to announce that since the inaugural Economic and Investment Summit, KadInvest 1.0 in 2017, we have boosted the investment base of Kaduna State to about $4.3 billion. These economic summits have been instrumental to opening up business opportunities in the state and providing a veritable platform for government to receive feedback from investors, thus supporting us to continue to improve on our business processes. This year's summit commenced on the 13th of October with a business expo at the Centenary Park. Industrialists and other providers of various services showcased their products, while robust discussions were had around investment opportunities in the state. There were panel discussions on topical issues that we believe will further enhance economic growth. These issues were taken head-on by experienced and knowledgeable individuals and included maximizing investments for development in agribusiness, repositioning livestock subsector for sustainable development, opportunities in infrastructure sector for businesses, and ease of doing business reforms, sustaining Kaduna's #1 position. The discussions provided new information and ideas for investors and our personnel alike on what needs to be done to push the Kaduna business environment to better and greater heights. I'm happy to report that these discussions had individuals from beyond Africa who were in the comfort of their business offices participating. We are determined to continue to lead in the areas of comparative advantage that we presently enjoy. It is therefore our solemn vow that we will continue to take steps that keep us ahead. We are therefore the first subnational in Nigeria's history to host its Economic and Investment Summit on Metaverse. The government of Kaduna greatly appreciates the power of the internet in providing links in the current business world. In this sense, we are the first government to fully waive the right-of-way charges for internet providers. This has immensely contributed towards paving the way for Kaduna State to be the first northern Nigerian state to achieve 100% broadband coverage. We established a collaboration with partners to provide connectivity across the 23 local governments of the state. This year's KadInvest also had a number of projects commissioned by His Excellency, and these projects cut across various sectors of the economy. We are taking steps to strengthen our position as the leading state in ease in doing business in Nigeria and to build a solid knowledge-based and data-driven economy. Today, all our decisions are made based on informed positions. Ladies and gentlemen, we are determined to position our private sector to lead development through bringing in opportunities for value creation that ordinarily are not available to government. Government alone cannot drive development. Our partnership with the private sector is therefore intended to drive quality change and bring development to our doorpost. Our esteemed business partners, I'm happy that our initiatives are yielding results. KADIPA and the state government will continue to do its very best to sustain and maintain Kaduna State as the most business-friendly environment in Nigeria. I thank you all for being part of KadInvest 7.0 and welcome you to the trendiest business event in Nigeria. God bless Kaduna State. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Again, I say welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hadiza Sabuwa Balarabe, Deputy Governor of Kaduna State. Can we please applaud her one more time for that very warm welcome? Thank you. Just borrowing your words, Doctor, welcome to the trendiest investment summit in the history of Nigeria. welcome to this momentous occasion. And again, welcome to this historic event happening right here at the Center of Learning. At this point, Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome a great man, a paragon of excellence, a man at the forefront of championing the most innovative ideas right here in Nigeria. I'm talking about a visionary leader. Let's make welcome with a standing ovation to give us a presentation on recap of KadInvest 1.0 to 6.0 and officially unveil KadInvest 7.0. His Excellency, our Governor, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai.
Thank you. Please be seated. Your Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, our leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Honorable Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Mariam Yelwaji, my colleague, the Deputy Governor, didn't pronounce it correctly. It's a Fulani name and difficult to pronounce. The Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, His Royal Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Members and distinguished members of the National Assembly, Your Royal Highnesses, my dear and beautiful wife, Aisha El-Rufai, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to skip the protocol to save time. I also recognize in absentia His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is on his way here to attend the summit, and the richest black man in Africa, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who has also confirmed he's on his way here any moment from now. Good morning and welcome to the 7th edition of the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit. I will take a few minutes to quickly go through a recap of the last 6 summits and what we hope to do in this summit. Okay. So I hope in the next few minutes to present the KadInvest story, what we have done in the last 7 years, as well as major achievements in 2022, and then unveil this edition of the summit and lay out what our future plans are. I will end up by, again, explaining why anyone should invest in Kaduna and summarize some of the investment opportunities in our portfolio so far. Now, when we started the idea of this summit, the first KadInvest in 2016, it was essentially to send a message to domestic and foreign investors that Kaduna is now under a new government that wants to be an enabler of business, that wants to be friendly to business, that want to attract investments to create jobs for our population. The previous government of 16 years has been hostile to business, has not put in place the enabling environment for businesses to thrive, and many businesses have shut down in Kaduna between 1999 and 2015. We had to change that narrative, so our first KadInvest was essentially to lay that foundation. And when we did the first edition, we were not even sure we would have a second, third, up to a 7th edition. But we wanted to outline to potential investors what our plans were and to persuade them that this is the time to come back to Kaduna and invest. Because in a state with a very low median age of the population, our median age in Kaduna is about 17. A large number of our people are young and they need jobs. We have to invite the private sector to invest because that's the only way and the fastest way to create jobs. So this was the first edition of KadInvest. And this is what we have been on for the last 7 years. As the Deputy Governor has explained, I think we've achieved some degree of success in that. So let me continue the story from there. From KadInvest 1, the first KadInvest, we got about 25 businesses attracted, both local and foreign. And we created KADIPA, the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, which is a one-stop shop to interface with potential investors, as well as ensure that current investors are being taken care of as well. KADIPA was established with the assistance of the British government, UK DFID, and it has become, by every measure, I would say, the most successful subnational investment promotion agency. KADIPA has been lucky to have first-class leadership right from the beginning. The first chairman of KADIPA was the late Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Architect Barnabas Yusuf Bala, may so rest in peace. And the vice chairman was John Komantaros, the chairman of Flour Mills. And I want to thank these two for their service in building KADIPA. I'm proud today to say that our vice chairman is His Royal Highness, the 14th Emir of Kano, Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi, and one of the brightest, most accomplished economists Nigeria has ever produced as the vice chairman. And we have seen the value and the benefits of their leadership. Your Highness, I again thank you for your leadership and your contribution to the development of Kaduna State and Nigeria at large. May the Almighty God continue to protect you, elevate you, and destroy your enemies. KadInvest 2.0 continued to build on what KadInvest, the first KadInvest did. In KadInvest 2.0, we presented our state development plan, our 5-year plan, and we launched sector implementation plans and our ease of doing business charter. When we came into office, Kaduna was ranked number 24 out of 37 subnationals in Nigeria in the ease of doing business. It just showed how much effort the PDP government of 16 years put into destroy Kaduna's attractiveness to business. We're number 24 out of 37. We're determined to change that position, so we launched our ease of doing business charter in 2016. We also launched our first BRT system and attracted a number of foreign direct investments. It was in 2016 that the Olam Poultry and Feed Mill, a $150 million investment, came into Kaduna, and mass housing and so on and so forth. We also established the first ICT hub in northern Nigeria, in Kaduna State, then, with the assistance of Zenith Bank. And we signed a 3-year MOU with United States Agency for International Development to provide technical assistance to drive economic investment in the state. We also launched our Eyes and Ears program to help us monitor projects across the state. The third edition of KadInvest was significant also in many ways, because for businesses to thrive, infrastructure is needed. So we launched our infrastructure master plan from 2018 to 2050, which determined what the infrastructure needs of the state would be from that time up to 2050, when the population of Kaduna is expected to double to about 20 million. So we had to think ahead and think of and determine what are the infrastructural needs both for businesses as well as citizens that live in the state, and we launched that infrastructure master plan. In that KadInvest, 14 or so businesses solidified their investments in Kaduna. When we did the count at that time, 79% of the investments we were attracting were foreign, and only 21 were domestic, which means we had to do more work in trying to get domestic investors, because the domestic investors appear to still be scared by what PDP has done in the last 16 years, so we had to work harder. But we also realized that for investments to thrive, you need to invest more in human capital. And it was in that year that a new flagship of investment of Dangote Pujo automobile plant was realized, with Kaduna State and Kebbi State as minority investors and Dangote Industries majority, with Pujo of France as investor and technical partner. That plant has already been completed and has started producing vehicles in Kaduna State. The fourth edition of KadInvest saw the launch and the operationalization of our industrial master plan. So first we had a state development plan, then we had an infrastructure plan, and now we had to present for our state an industrialization plan. And we aligned the industrialization plan with the infrastructure plan as well as our state development plan. This was the year that we launched Kaduna into Industry 4.0 and began to look at knowledge-driven economy and the opportunities being presented by information technology. The fifth edition was the edition that took place, I think, in the year of COVID. It was difficult. We were a little lost as to what to do, but we were determined that KadInvest must continue, even with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it was the first KadInvest that we held virtually. It was the first time that we moved the date, the time for KadInvest to September because of COVID. If you remember, the whole world locked down around June. So we couldn't do it in April. So we did it, we launched it in September. It was virtual, but we still went ahead and had a KadInvest in the year 2020. President Buhari was the special guest of honor virtually. And that was the year we launched our public-private partnership policy and manual. In spite of COVID, between KadInvest 5.0 and 6.0, we grew our investment portfolio by over 500 million, in spite of COVID, as I said. The theme for that year was infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, because by then we have realized we have to bring the three together. And we began working on this, and the results what we began to sow in KadInvest 6.0. That year, we launched our second state development plan, 2021 to 2025, that laid out our blueprint for developing the state up to 2025. It was also the first year we began to look at potential of the state in tourism. We know that because of the insecurity that pervades the state and the country, it may not happen immediately, but in Kaduna we try to think ahead and anticipate opportunities and prepare for the time, because insecurity is not going to be with us forever. It will go one day, but when it does, what's the plan? So we have a tourism plan and a catalog, and we also launched the Skills for Prosperity program, which is designed to provide skills to those that are educated and those that are not, and equip our young people with high-quality skills needed by our industries. In KadInvest 6.0, we also announced the increase of our investment portfolio to about $2.8 billion. So before we launch KadInvest 7.0, let us just recap some of the achievements this year, 2022. Kaduna State government collected 52.8 billion in internally generated revenue in 2021, plus from about 12 billion when we came into office. We also commissioned the remodeled Murtala Mohammed Square. Those of you that visited here the last time, about 2 years ago, will see a massive change in this environment. We commissioned some road projects as part of our urban renewal program. President Muhammad Buhari was here in January and he commissioned many projects and sort of complained that he couldn't find his way back to his house. It was a good complaint. We also commissioned the 136-bed infectious diseases hospital. We built this during COVID, not only to take care of the needs then, but also to prepare for the next pandemic. Because believe me or not, there will be another pandemic. We don't know the nature of it, but the COVID-19 pandemic showed the weaknesses in our public health system, and we have to be prepared. We hope there will not be a pandemic, but in this life, governments should hope for the best, but plan for the worst. So we are ready for the next pandemic by the grace of God. We also commissioned one of our mega primary schools in Rikasa. This was a school that had 23,000 students sharing 14 classrooms. We had to break that school into 4 schools, rebuilt them, and made them state-of-the-art in every way. We commissioned that. And various roads in the federal capital, in Kaduna Capital Territory, were also commissioned in early 2022. Industries were also commissioned, Sabongari Market, Zaria Pharmaceuticals, so many projects were commissioned. You've gone ahead of me. Or have you? Okay. Barbados fertilizer plant, many other projects were committed. I think we can jump this. You can see from the slides. That is important. We also disbursed low-interest loans to women. We have the Kaduna State Women Empowerment Fund, where we disburse 200 million every year to women engaged in small businesses, because we believe in empowering women. When women are empowered, when women are rich, their children go to school, their children are healthy, they look after the family. When men are rich, they tend to marry more wives, especially men from Zaria. I am from Zaria. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. In 2022, we also launched something very innovative, the distribution of our drugs and medical equipment using drones. Zipline is an American, California-based company that began this innovation of distributing medical commodities using drones. Their first operational base was in Ghana, and they came to Nigeria and chose to pilot in Kaduna State. I'm happy to say that this is already going on. We no longer require vehicles to take our medicines to the farthest parts of the state, and the first facility in Pambegua was launched, and they have been operating, and they hope to expand to 2 other locations in the state. And I'm happy that several state governments have already approached them to do the same in their states. We're building a 300-bed specialist hospital, and we've brought in a medical group from Dubai to manage it, because we believe that after investing billions of naira in such a hospital that will have the most advanced nuclear medicine and cancer treatment center in Nigeria, it is best to have it managed by the private sector. So we signed that agreement, and we are just tidying up the completion of the hospital. We've also signed an agreement with Elekta of Sweden to supply and install equipment for nuclear medicine that, as I said, will be the most advanced in Nigeria. Working with NSIA, there is a second cancer center that will be built by Baradiko Teaching Hospital, because our objective is to make Kaduna the destination for medical tourism, particularly for patients of cancer in Nigeria. We'll have more cancer treatment capability in Kaduna than anywhere in Nigeria by the grace of God in the next 2 years. We also held the 4th edition of Kaba Fest after some hiatus due to COVID. We couldn't do the Kaduna Books and Arts Festival because of COVID, but we resumed this year. Next slide. And finally, our Kaduna Residents Identity Management Agency has so far registered over 5 million of the estimated 10 million residents of Kaduna State. We have data about these residents, we know everything about them, and the whole idea is for us to get every Kaduna resident registered as a precondition for enjoying social services. Education in Kaduna State for the first 12 years is free. So we don't want people flooding from other states. Because education is free and of good quality in the States, we want only those that are resident here to enjoy this. My brother, His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II is here. So I will not say we are afraid that Kano people will come here because they like freebies. I won't say it. But our Kaduna resident Identity Management Agency is linked to NIMSI. So 5.3 million Kaduna residents already have their NIN, which is the highest percentage by population of any state in Nigeria. And I want to congratulate Kadrima for an excellent job. We'll now unveil the 7th edition of Kaduna Economic and Investment Forum, which is themed Building a Resilient Economy. The world has gone through a lot in the last 2 years. The COVID-19 pandemic came with challenges, and now, with the pandemic receding, the war in Ukraine has turned the world upside down. Energy and food prices are rising. Global supply chains disrupted during COVID have been made worse by this war. And the view of most experts is that things are likely to get worse before they get better. This is why we believe that we should begin to think of how to build a resilient economy that will survive shocks that are expected and unexpected in the next couple of years. So this is the theme of KadInvest 7.0. It is imperative that not only the national governments, but even subnationals should begin to think on what policies, programs, and projects they should implement to mitigate the effects of these expected and some unexpected shocks. In that regard, in this edition of Kaduna Economic and Investment Forum, we will launch further ease of doing business initiatives. Kaduna became #1 in 2018 from number 24 in 2014, but we want to remain #1, not only in Nigeria, but we want to be #1 in Africa, in the world, if need be, because that's the only way we can be the first choice of investors. So in this KadInvest, we hope to sign a Kaduna Mutual Accountability Framework and a new and enhanced ease of doing business charter with our development partners. We are also going to announce the declaration of the Green Economic Zone as the first special economic zone and a free trade zone in our state, and I think one of the first in Nigeria. I want to express our gratitude to the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment and NEBSA for all that they did to make sure that this declaration of the Green Economic Zone as a special economic zone is done in the shortest possible time. Thirdly, we will launch the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone project, which is an initiative of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm happy that the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, our brother, Dr. Mohammed Abubakar, is here, who is the champion of this project, and Kaduna is one of the beneficiaries. We hope today to sign the subsidiary loan agreement with the Federal Ministry of Finance. So these are the three major issues that we'll present to you today. In addition, there will be two plenaries, one on delivering infrastructure for a knowledge-based economy, and another on the agricultural transformation for sustainable and resilient food systems in Kaduna State. During the course of the day, we'll have a special guest of honor, President Muhammadu Buhari, who is being represented by the Honorable Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, to make a presentation. Our gubernatorial candidate, and by the grace of God, the next governor of Kaduna State, Senator Obasani, will also make a presentation to make the point that when elected by the grace of God, these policy directions will continue. We want to assure investors that the only thing that will change in Kaduna State is the face of the governor, perhaps the disappearance of some of the old people in the government, and more aggressive policy formulation and direction. Senator Obasani will assure you that he's going to continue our good policies, reverse the bad ones, because not all our policies are necessarily good. We are human, we make mistakes. But as far as investment promotion is concerned, he is going to assure you that this administration is on the right track, and he's just going to sustain that and do more. We want to assure our investors that there is nothing to worry about. Obasani, like me, is a Malam, and he will continue in the direction of Malams. We also are expecting the arrival anytime of our presidential candidate and his running mate. I'm referring here to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by God's grace, the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to also assure you that the federal government will continue to support Kaduna State. Our state has enjoyed unprecedented support from Buhari's administration because Buhari lives here and because of the close personal relationships some of us enjoy with him. Our investors need to understand that it will continue and may be even better under Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And he will give you that assurance himself when he arrives. We have other keynote speakers. Abubakar Suleiman, the MD CEO of Stalin Bank, and one of our enduring partners in everything we do in Kaduna State. Stalin Bank has been there to support us, and we are very grateful. So he'll speak to you as one of our keynote speakers. And of course, the highlight of the day will be the remarks of His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, who is the Vice Chairman of the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency. As you know, His Highness is one of our most accomplished public servants. As I said, one of our best economists, one of our best bankers, one of our best emirs, one of our best of everything. And he will speak to you today, and I'm happy he will be speaking last after me because, as I always tell you, His Highness makes me appear very uncontroversial. So, but expect from His Highness the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth, even if you don't like it. Tonight, we hope to host you to a gala night for those of you that be able to make it. Please come. relax, and enjoy the hospitality of Kaduna. Let me talk about what we've done in the last 2 days very quickly, then I'll take my seat. In the last 2 days, yesterday we spent the whole day commissioning projects. Some of the projects we commissioned include the largest rice processing mill in Kaduna State, Falgate Foods, the AFEX Grain Aggregation and Processing Center in Kudan Local Government, the Computerized Vehicle Inspection Center, Kaduna Galaxy Mall, Muwafaq Estate, Nuru Siraj Estate, Reno Estate, Amsco Neighborhood Center. What is unique about all this, that they are all either private investments or public-private partnerships. And we commissioned all of them yesterday. We also held a business expo on Thursday, which kickstarted KadInvest with 4 concurrent sector expos: agriculture, technology, infrastructure, and solid minerals and others, at the Centenary Park, another location here in Kaduna. In those expos, we launched the Livestock Regulatory Authority regulations, because Kaduna was the center of livestock farming in Nigeria. But banditry decimated that, and we want to bring it back now that there is an aggressive operation against the bandits. We also launched our ginger investment policy and strategic framework with the support of GIZ of Germany. Kaduna is the largest producer of ginger in Nigeria. We produce 85% of Nigeria's ginger. And we want to leverage and add value to this, and this is incorporated in our investment policy and strategic framework. We also signed an agreement with Kaduna Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture to better utilize the trade fair complex throughout the year. Because the trade fair complex is a huge investment that is used only 2-3 days in a year during the trade fair. We have now come up with a way to use it all through the year by converting the trade fair complex into a film village. We know there is Nollywood, Kannywood. We want to have Kadawood, and the trade fair complex will be used for that purpose to further promote the creative arts sector. So where do we aspire to be? What are our future plans? You know, in 2015, when we came into office, we said we wanted to make Kaduna great again. Kaduna used to be great, but years of bad governance have nearly destroyed our state. So we felt that the main job before us was to make Kaduna great again. Donald Trump stole this from us and changed Kaduna to America, but we are not going to ask him to pay us for copyright fees. But then we said we wanted a state where there are abundant economic opportunities and prosperity, social inclusion, peace and security, good governance, and improved quality of life of the citizenry. We've tried to do that in the last 7 years. We have succeeded in some areas, we haven't succeeded in some, and we hope that Senator Obasani's government will continue in that direction. But these are the challenges. Look at how Kaduna is. This is the demographic, next slide. This is the demographic picture of Kaduna State. People over 65 in Kaduna are just about 300,000. It's a very young state. Very, very young state. About 10 million people, third largest in terms of population after Kano and Lagos. And 40% of the population is below the age of 15. And we have an increasing female population. So those that are looking for wives in other states where there aren't, please come to Kaduna. We have enough females. But essentially, Kaduna, has a population that is in search of jobs, infrastructure, and industry. Our job as government is to ensure that those things are in place. So we have aggressive infrastructure development plans, and we cannot do it alone. We need the private sector to come and support us in doing some of the infrastructure and tolling to recover their investments. Kaduna can absorb as much as $65 billion in infrastructure. Next slide. Over the period of 2018 to 2050. So we need investors in infrastructure. In the implementation of our state development plan, we aim to consolidate previous achievements and also fast-track our attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. And these are all linked to our policy documents and sector implementation plans. Graphically, these are some of our future plans. Next slide, please. In agriculture, we want to increase the share of agriculture to 40% of our whole state GDP and achieve a 20% contribution for agro-allied output to GDP. We want to develop our electricity and electronic industry to be up to 10% of GDP. Motor vehicle assembly is already big in Kaduna. We have Mahindra assembling tractors. We have Pan assembling some Chinese brands of vehicles. And then at Dangote Pujo assembling Pujo and other OEM brand of vehicles. So we hope Kaduna will be an automotive assembly hub that will be contributing up to 10% of GDP. We hope to revive the brownfield textile industry and provide improved support and services to cotton farmers in the next years. We are investing aggressively in ICT, and we are looking for more investment there. We are investing aggressively in electricity directly as a state government and with other partners. We want Kaduna to be off the national grid within the next 5 years by the grace of God. We want to be self-sufficient in electricity because a national grid that collapses 7 times in a year is not something to rely upon. So Kaduna will be off grid by the grace of God. We already have the plan. We are building an 84 megawatt gas-powered plant. There's a 215 megawatt Kudenda that the federal government is looking at concessioning to us. We're doing a 100 megawatt solar plant, and more investments are coming. And we're building our own transmission grid within Kaduna, independent of the national grid. We haven't decided whether to be on 66 kV or on 132 kV, but we're definitely going to go through it by the grace of God. Mining and quarrying is a big deal. We've already started mining iron ore in Kaduna. African natural resources will produce the first steel in Nigeria. 60 years after the failure of Ajaokuta, and more than $8 billion sunk in Ajaokuta, not a kilogram of steel. African natural resources with $650 million investment will produce steel in Kaduna, the first in Nigeria, as early as next year by the grace of God. We've also started mining lithium. You know, lithium is a high value metal now. It's called the new gold, the white gold, and it's needed for batteries, for electric cars, and so on. We are mining lithium, we'll be processing it here, and by the grace of God, before the end of this year, Kaduna will start exporting lithium to the world, the first in Nigeria. We're working also on transportation, both intra and interstate transportation. We're looking at rail freight, we're looking at light rail, and partners to implement that. I can summarize our objectives in one slide, the next one. In terms of job creation and other economic indices, we want to create between 2 million and 7 million jobs by 2050. We want to create wealth equal to about 102 billion by next year, by 2023. We want to increase our GDP by 50%. And because of our stable investment climate, we hope business registration will increase by about 34% before the next KadInvest in 2023. And the whole objective is reduce what we import and exploit our relatively cheap and skilled labor to produce goods that we can export. So why should we invest in Kaduna? I end my presentation every year with this pitch. We are the easiest state to do business in Nigeria, and our investors will attest to that when they have the opportunity. We have an investor-friendly environment. We have a public service that actually believes it is a public service, that they are servants, that their job is to enable and facilitate and remove your hurdles and solve your problems rather than be the problem. We are the third largest consumer market in Nigeria. We have mineral resources from gold, nickel, lithium, tin, iron ore, and many others. We've registered steady economic growth in the last 7 years. We have a large population, the third most populous in the state, productive workforce, and situating in Kaduna gives you access to literally 52% of Nigeria's market, because Kaduna is in the heart of northern Nigeria, and you can reach any major city in northern Nigeria within 2-3 hours. It is the gateway to the northern Nigerian market with abundant natural resources. In the last 7 years, we have seen our investment portfolio grow to a total of about 4.488 billion. Over $2 billion already realized, and about $2.5 billion announced that we are following up to actualize. In our estimate, we've created about 75,000 jobs, direct and indirect, in this period. So this is what KadInvest has done to Kaduna State. Many states have tried to do economic and investment summits, but have done 1 or 2 and couldn't sustain it. Maybe because they have not seen the value. In Kaduna State, we've seen the value. We'll sustain this by the grace of God. In fact, we're looking at doing another, the last KadInvest with me as governor, perhaps in April 2023, just before we leave office, just to round this all up. And the incoming governor has agreed that we should do it. So please vote him in so that we can have another KadInvest. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening and for your patience, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Malam Nasir El-Rufai, for your recap and presentation on KadInvest 1.0 to KadInvest 6.0, and of course for officially unveiling KadInvest 7.0. Thank you very much once again, Your Excellency. You may please be seated. Thank you. Now, you would agree with me after listening to our governor, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, that that was a very detailed, insightful, passionate, and articulate presentation. When I listened to him, I started to ask myself, is it really 7 years so far? Because it feels like we've been doing this for 50 years. When you consider the achievements, when you consider the results, when you consider all that has been done in just 7 years. Can we please applaud the visionary leadership of our excellent governor? Thank you. Kaduna is truly a trailblazer state. And I like that he also, identified that Kaduna is a gender-inclusive state, because when you empower a woman, you empower a nation. So that is very interesting for me as a woman. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. In the words of Charles Darwin, he says, and I quote, "It is not the strongest of species that survive, not the most intelligent, but that one that is most adaptable to change." And I say this because it speaks about evolution and being able to innovate. So when he was speaking about KadInvest still holding virtually during the COVID year, it says a lot to me, because you must evolve. So they adopted technology to ensure that the summit still held. And that also says one thing: you can see the value, you can see the results. Therefore, this summit must continue, and we must continue to drive partnerships and collaborations with the private sector, with international communities, and of course, with the state government. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Can we one more time applaud our governor? Thank you. At this point, I'd like to specially recognize a very special woman, one who continues to lend her support to the #1 man in Kaduna State. I'm talking about the delectable First Lady of Kaduna State, Aisha El-Rufai. Let's make her welcome with a warm round of applause. Thank you. Because again, we understand that her support keeps the governor going, right? We agree? Thank you very much. At this point, we'll take an address by the special guest of honor, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is ably represented by Ambassador Miriam Yowaji Katagum, the Minister of State, Industry, Trade, and Investment. Please, let's make her welcome with a warm and resounding round of applause. Thank you.
Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, CON, OFR, and Her Excellency, the wife of the Governor, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Dr. Hadiza Sabwa Balarabe, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar, distinguished and honorable members of the National Assembly here present, His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, the 14th Emir of Kano and Vice Chair of KADIPA, the special guest of honor, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, and I do recognize him in absentia, and the former Governor of Lagos State and presidential candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, our royal fathers, keynote speakers, eminent panelists, captains of industry, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. I bring you warm greetings from His Excellency, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, who is unavailable due to matters of state, but who has directed me to present his goodwill message on this occasion. And I shall proceed to read the message. And this is the text. Goodwill message from President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, to the 7th edition of the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, KadInvest 7.0, holding in Kaduna on Saturday, 15th October 2022. I congratulate the government and people of Kaduna State on the occasion of the 7th Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, KadInvest 7.0. The Kaduna State government has consistently hosted this annual summit since 2016. KadInvest has had remarkable success in demonstrating the investment potentials of Kaduna State, sharing lessons learned, and placing on display the readiness of its leadership to embrace and implement necessary reforms to promote economic competitiveness. I wish to commend the efforts of the Kaduna State government as it establishes its credentials as the investment destination of choice in Nigeria. These efforts have received the right recognition, as seen in the responses of the business community through the quantum of investments inflow into Kaduna State. It is hardly surprising, therefore, that the state has emerged as one of the leading destinations for foreign direct investment within Nigeria in the last 6 years. The success of subnationals in attracting investments, creating jobs, and increasing their internally generated revenue is critical to the success of the entire country. I'm therefore impressed that the Kaduna State government has, from inception, used KadInvest as a veritable platform for showcasing its investment potentials. The state's commitment to consistent implementation of the Ease of Doing Business Charter is exemplary, including its ability to quadruple its IGR to 52 billion in 2021 from the 13 billion of 2015 without increases in tax rates. Indeed, the federal government actively supports the efforts of its subnationals to promote development in the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. I've closely followed the strides Kaduna State has made since 2015. It was an honor for me to commission the Olam Hatchery and Feed Mill project in 2017, about 18 months after the groundbreaking was done at the first edition of KadInvest in 2016. It is commendable also that investors are creating jobs in the agribusiness sector, taking advantage of the state's prioritization of agriculture. Investments have, as well, poured into other sectors that Kaduna has prioritized, such as ICT, pharmaceuticals, renewables, automobile assembly, housing, retail, and mining, especially iron ore and steel. I also note with delight the innovative public-private partnership projects between the Kaduna State government and AREA, which aims at addressing concerns around food security by improving livelihoods while developing a pathway to resolving socio-demographic tensions that we continue to work towards eradicating. Additionally, the ongoing development of iron ore mining and steel processing capacity in the state through investments by African Natural Resources and Mines Limited is especially commendable. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the federal government will continue to support efforts to attract job-creating investments like Kaduna State is doing. We believe that much can be done at the subnational levels to drive human capital development and expand economic opportunities. It is with pleasure that I recall the commissioning of some infrastructure projects by the Kaduna State Urban Renewal Program in Kaduna, Kafanchan and Zaria in January 2022. These massive investments in infrastructure, in infrastructure upgrade that Kaduna State is executing is no doubt an enabler of economic dynamism, apart from its equally valuable significance of improving the well-being of citizens and the attractiveness of our cities for work, ordinary living, and recreation. Given its track record since 2015, I have no doubt that the Kaduna State government and its private sector partners will take full advantage of the economic windows that are being opened by the federal government investments, such as the Ajakuta Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline. The theme of KadInvest 7.0, Building Economic Resilience, reflects the heightened consciousness of the need to safeguard growth and livelihoods in a world that is witnessing severe disruptions to established order. I therefore wish you productive deliberations and further success in developing Kaduna State. This is the end of the text from Mr. President. So personally, I thank you all for listening. God bless Kaduna State, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. It is such a pleasure to have you here representing our President, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you so much, and a round of applause, please. I would like to invite to the stage an eminent personality, a visionary leader, an inspiring Nigerian, and as our governor rightly said, the brightest and probably the most accomplished economist. You're personally an inspiration to me, and I'm sure a lot of us here. His Highness, Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II. Please, a round of applause, who is also our chairman at the KADIPA board, to please grace the stage and give us a keynote speech. A round of applause, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, my sister, the Honorable Minister. Actually, she's my aunt, but I call her my sister, metaphorically. My sister, the wife of His Excellency, the Governor, Haja Aisha Omi El-Rufai. You know, my brother and friend always complains about Kano people coming to Kaduna to look for freebies. But he has no qualms going to Kano to find this wife. And so I'm glad that behind the governor of Kaduna State is our daughter from Kano. And we're proud of you, and thanks for all you've done. Your Excellency, I thank you once more for inviting me to KadInvest. And as you know, I am actually a student. I've absconded from school Thursday and Friday because having been part of this conference every year, and this being your last year, it was inconceivable that I would absent myself. You've rightly gone over the progress over the last 7 KadInvests, the achievements of Kaduna State since this started in 2017 are nothing short of remarkable. The results are there for all to see. And it is no surprise that all over this country, when people are giving examples of good stories to tell, of governors that are doing what they're supposed to do, I'm proud always that my friend and brother Nasir is #1 on the list. Not that it surprises all of us who have known him since we were 16, 17. I had reservations about his going to politics because I felt, like me, his temperament was not suitable to that environment. But he has done extremely well, and he has survived. And he has left a legacy. My prayer for the state is that we have continuity. For those of us who've lived in Lagos, we've seen how just having one governor after the other build on what the predecessor did. Anyone who knows Lagos 20 years ago knows that has changed in every single respect. It's not just the roads, it's not just the unicorns, even the color of the water in the marina. I mean, really, for those of us who lived in Lagos, it was black. Over years of cleaning it up, it's now actually looking blue. So we do hope, and we have Senator Obasani here, and we hope and pray that you have victory in the elections, and we hope and pray that you continue to build on this. I can afford to say this. I wouldn't say it with any other candidate, but this is Nasiru's candidate, so I have to be partisan. And what else? So I'm going to speak about improving subnational resilience against global economic shocks. And as you would expect, a lot of the conversation would be around the macro, around the global economy, around the Nigerian economy, and around the threats that subnationals face and have to deal with. So I will go through the global picture, what I call Nigeria's curse, the state's problems, and some recommendations and perspectives. So if we can go to the first slide, where we start talking about the global picture. In a few short months since the beginning of this year, we've seen how the outlook for the global economy has deteriorated sharply. Hopes for a quick resolution of the Ukraine war have disappeared, resulting in a cost of living crisis, high inflation, and as you know, in Great Britain, you already have one big casualty in the Chancellor having had to resign as a result of these crises. Compared to earlier this year, you can see that over a third of the countries in the world weighted by GDP are expected to be in contraction in 2022. In January, it was only 5% of world GDP affected. Now you're talking about countries accounting for 35% of world GDP on a weighted basis going to be in contraction in 2022. That gives you an idea of the world we are moving into. Now there's an interesting thing about the transmission to emerging markets, and I think it's important to look at this particular slide. The red dot, which we're looking at now, deviation from pre-pandemic output trends. The red dot tells us where in January the forecast was for different regions of the world, and the bars tell us where we are today in terms of the latest World Economic Outlook. And what you find interesting here is that if you look at the emerging market developing economies of Asia, the red dot is right inside the bar, which means that the outlook today is much worse than it was in January. The same thing with EMDs in general, same thing with developing economies in Europe, same thing with China, but same thing with Latin America. Now, Latin America and the Caribbean and Sub-Saharan Africa, the red dot is right on the point of the bar, which means that Between January and now, there has been no deterioration in the outlook for these countries compared to the rest of the world. You can see the United States, where the outlook was actually for positive growth, and this is where it is now. Now look at the Middle East and Central Asia, and the outlook now is even better than it was in January. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to look at Sub-Saharan Africa and then the Middle East and Central Asia? The reason is that the Middle East and Central Asia is looking very good because of high oil and energy prices. So the question is, if the Ukraine war, if the rising food and energy crisis, the rising food and gas prices, if they're good for Saudi Arabia, if they're good for Kuwait, if they're good for Qatar, if they're good for Iran, why are they bad for Nigeria? Okay? So please don't let anybody tell you that your problem is because of the Ukraine war. The Ukraine war has led to rising oil prices. It's led to rising gas prices. It should be good news for Nigeria. It is good news for all oil-producing countries. It is bad news for us. So the problem is Nigeria, not Ukraine. And we'll explain how that problem has built up, or what we think is the cause of that problem on the fiscal and the monetary side. You've got gathering clouds. And there is a silent gathering cloud that people are not paying attention to. If you look at this graph, it is the strengthening US dollar. Over the last few weeks and months, the dollar has been rising at a rate that we only saw last in 1980. A number of factors, obviously, with the sanctions on Russia, America is selling gas and energy to Europe. The dollar is becoming a safe haven in times of global insecurity. But what this has done is that this revaluation, this increase in the value of the trade-weighted dollar by 17% has placed a tremendous burden on currencies worldwide. You find this in Ghana, you find this in South Africa, you find this in Europe. You find that in general, against all major currencies, the dollar has been rising. I want you to bear this graph in mind, especially this arrow that you have. I want you to bear this graph in mind, especially this arrow that you have, because a few graphs down the line, we're going to come to the Nigerian foreign exchange market, and you'll see the parallels I'm trying to draw. Now, I have a section that is referred to as Nigeria's curse. We talk about oil as a blessing, or it can be a curse. What are our own problems? Let us begin with us being an oil economy with no oil revenue. In 2011, the federal government earned about $60 billion from the oil sector. This amount has been going down successively. Today, in 2022, based on half-year figures, if we annualize, the revenue of the federal government from the oil sector is only $2.9 billion. From 60 billion to 2.9 billion. Now, I know we have been told often that this was partly a result of declining oil prices a few years ago. What is the explanation today? what is the explanation today that with high oil prices, federal government revenue in 2022, when the oil markets are buoyant, it's only $2.9 billion. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to give numbers. I'm going to give tables. I'm going to let you draw your own conclusions, okay? I'm tired of being quoted, but I'll give you the facts. And the facts will speak to themselves. And you can guess from these facts what is happening and why we are where we are. Now, what is the result of this failure in public financial management? Every year we have a budget. Everywhere we budget revenue, and everywhere we underperform. In 2015, we projected revenue of 3.5 trillion. We ended up with 3.2, which was close. 2016, 3.9, we had 2.9. 2017, 5.1, down to 2.7 in reality. 2018, we projected 7.2 trillion and got 3.9. 2019, we projected 6.9 and got 4.1. 2020, we projected 5.8 and got 3.4. The gap keeps widening, and I think in this current budget that we have for this year, we are projecting 9 trillion naira. And most likely, we are going to underperform that figure. So what is the result of failing to raise this revenue? What is the result of the failure to trap revenues and the failure to fund the government? Okay, so can we continue? I see the Ashwaju of Lagos is here just on time. I hope. So I'm hoping that he's coming just in time to see what he's preparing himself for. It's not easy. All right, so okay, so we have the revenue forecasts against actual realized revenue. And every year, there has been an increasing gap between where the slide is, the slide on revenues. The previous one, please. The last slide. Okay. So as we can see, every year we've projected revenue 3.5, now we've got 3.2, 2015, and by 2020 we're projecting 5.8, and we've got 3.4. Now the consequence of this gap is that it has to be filled if the spending is going to continue. And what did we do as a country? We went through what are unorthodox coping mechanisms that have placed greater difficulty on us. In the absence of targeted revenues, both oil and non-oil, the federal government turned to central bank for ways and means. Now, under the Central Bank of Nigeria Act, and this is something you all need to know, the central bank is not allowed to lend to the federal government unless the federal government has no money of its own. And when that happens, the central bank cannot lend more than 5% of the previous year's revenue as ways and means. So if you look at the numbers we see in revenue over the last 7-8 years, we've never really crossed 4 trillion naira. Which means if we were complying with our law, the central bank today should not be lending the federal government more than 200 billion naira. Where are we today? 21 trillion. We are lending, the central bank has lent this government 100 times what the limit is. Now, I started complaining about this in 2016 when we were at 4.7 trillion. I remember I was at a conference organized by Savannah Center, which was owned by the current chief of staff to the president, President Gambari, and he was there. And I stated at that time, we were only at 4.7, that this is unhealthy. This will destroy the currency, it will create inflation. At that time, many of you remember the backlash. In fact, the next day there was a headline in the Punch newspaper. It said, Sanusi lied. 4.7, I was lying. We're on 21 trillion. And everything we see, and I will show the link between these slides and what we are seeing. Now look at the rate at which ways and means has grown. 2017, 2018 started rising fast. 2019, from 2020 we start going quarterly. This is just, you know, when you have ways and means, you know what it means? Central bank is just printing money. That's what it is. Because the one thing about the central bank is that it is the only institution that has the power to create money ex nihilo, out of nothing. The way God created the world, you create money. You don't need to tax. You don't need to collect it. You just sit down as you can. The central bank can just create 2 trillion naira and put in your account. And that is 2 trillion into the economy. Now, just to explain it in a simple manner, if you put in 2 trillion naira and your dollar reserves are not increasing, what then happens? Your naira is devalued. But the problem we have had is at the time we were expanding the balance sheet of the central bank, we were also saying that we want a strong currency. It's not possible. You can't eat your cake and have it. You cannot increase the supply of naira relative to dollars the supply of naira relative to production, and expect prices and exchange rates to remain stable. And so there has been a fundamental lack of understanding of how economies work. And this is something that's been tried. You know, you've seen Idi Amin's Uganda, we've seen Mugabe's Zimbabwe, we have seen Chavez in Venezuela. These policies have been tried again and again in different parts of the world, and they have failed. And for the last 7 years, we have continued pursuing these policies. And what is the result? These are your inflation rates. Next slide, please. We've had rising inflation, core inflation, food inflation. Simple arithmetic formula, when you get to inflation of 80, this is the only country I have seen where the Statistics Board announces inflation is 18%, inflation is 19%, and nothing is happening. You know, it's like somebody said it rained yesterday. An 18% rate of inflation means that the price of everything on average doubles every 4 years. That's a simple arithmetic. Divide 72 by the rate of inflation, and you get the number of years it will take for the price of things to double. So if rice starts at 8,000, at 18% inflation, after 4 years, it will be 16. After another 4 years, it will be 32. Second, the next slide, exchange rate. Now, I told you to remember that slide on the strengthening dollar and that arrow. Look at the widening gap between the parallel market rate and the official rate of exchange. As the dollar has strengthened in the world, as all currencies have lost value against the dollar, we have stubbornly insisted that our own currency, officially, will not be devalued. But the markets do not take orders. Markets work on demand and supply and market conditions. Today, the gap between the official rate and the parallel market rate is 300 naira. You know, what this means is if you can get $100,000 officially and round trip it, you make a profit of 30 million naira. If you get $1 million today in the official market and sell, you can make a profit of 300 million naira. There is no country where you create this kind of opportunity for rent seeking and you expect people not to take advantage of the rent. I know something, I can sell something for 700 and I can get it for 400 and I should not arbitrage. So when I say that our problems are of our own making, they're of our own making. There's no way you can be selling your foreign exchange at below market and not expect arbitrage and not expect corruption. And that's why a small number of people can become multi-billionaires for doing nothing but arbitraging foreign exchange. It's the same thing that happened in the oil sector with the subsidies. That is happening in the foreign exchange market. Now, oh, you've moved on. Let me go. The next element is, what is the source of this lack of revenue? One source is what I call the subsidy free-for-all. You know, I can say this because I've been saying this since 2011, 2012, since I was governor of Central Bank. And I'll continue saying it. And to my friend Ashiwaju, if you win, and if you continue with this, I will continue saying it. So you have to be ready to deal with me. Because, okay, so because, no, I think you should know, because if you continue, we will be fighting. You and I will be fighting. But, so, now look at this. I said I will give you numbers and you make up your mind. What I have here are liters per day per capita against GDP per capita of countries. And I'm using the official numbers. NMPC tells us officially that we are consuming 66 million liters a day. I have Nigeria's GDP stated using the parallel market rate and using the official rate. And we are consuming 0.3 liters per day per capita. We are consuming more than Indonesia, more than Egypt, more than Pakistan, more than Kenya, more than Cote d'Ivoire on a per capita basis. You can make up your mind. Why is it, are we drinking the petrol? But there's also something interesting. There is a spot in there, Nigeria 2019. And it's 0.2. In 2019, officially, we were importing 40 million liters a day. 2019. In 2022, officially, we are importing 66 million liters a day. In 3 years, we have increased our petrol consumption by 50%. Please tell me, is it the population? Is it the number of cars? I don't know. I'm not telling you what is happening, but just ask yourself if it makes sense that in 3 years, you increase your daily consumption of petrol by 50%. And then look at the numbers. Look at the trend. We have become an outlier. Another way to look at this is to compare liters per day per vehicle. And we got the vehicle numbers from MBS and from different nations' data. In Nigeria, we're consuming almost 6 liters a day per vehicle. More than Iran. Iran is 3 to 4 times as rich as Nigeria on a per capita income basis. Iran has a much more intensive road network on a per capita basis. Iran has even more subsidies. Petrol in Iran today costs 5 cents. It is 15% of the cost of petrol in Nigeria. But we say, based on these numbers, we say that we are consuming more per vehicle than Iran. You know, on these numbers, every vehicle in Nigeria goes 40 kilometers a day. Every vehicle does 40 kilometers, if these numbers are true. You know, some of these numbers, I don't know what we do as Nigerians. We don't even ask ourselves simple questions. If you tell me I'm importing 66 million, consuming 66 million liters of petrol a day, let's assume a fuel tanker does 23,000 liters. 23? 33,000 liters. That means every single day we have 2,000 fuel tankers on our roads. Where are these tankers? Do you see them? 2,000 every day. And remember that some are going and some are coming back, okay? So every day we should see 4,000 fuel tankers on Nigerian roads if we are indeed consuming 66 million liters a day. Like I said, I'm not telling you what my own reading is. I'm hoping that you will make your own reading. But again, as at 2019, we were doing less than 4. And let me also say something. If you go back to 2015, not 2019, I clearly remember the Minister of State Petroleum, Emmanuel Kachukwu, announcing that we are consuming 29 million liters a day. That was the correct number, 29. So between 2015 and 2019, we have magically moved from 29 million liters a day to 66 million liters a day. And on some days, 100 million. Next slide. I have chosen one country to make a comparison. And again, like I said, I'm just giving you numbers. You'll decide, when you have these numbers, you'll decide what you think is happening. I'm tired of translating. Nigeria has a population of 216 million. Pakistan, 214. Roughly the same, right? GDP per capita, 1,364 to 1,501, roughly the same. Road network in thousands of kilometers, 195 to 263. Not too far off. Road network per 1 billion inhabitants, 0.9 to 1.2. Now, one would expect that in this situation, our fuel consumption should be roughly equal to that of Pakistan, or even slightly less. But what do we have? We are told that we are importing 2.5 times, about 3 times, 66 million liters, while Pakistan is importing only 21 million liters. 3 times. A country our size, our population, our per capita GDP, our road network, our number of cars, but we are importing 3 times. You can believe these numbers. I don't believe them, but I'm not saying you should not believe them. But you can begin to see where the problem is. We continue, and we're looking at liters per capita daily consumption of PMS by state. We find that there are certain patterns. Some of the states that are on our western border with West Africa seem to be having more than other states, which indicates that a lot of smuggling is happening across the border. We're not really importing for Nigeria, but for other countries. And I would urge you to please begin to interrogate some of the publicly available numbers, like these numbers of trucks. I actually had 2 names that I had stated. I took them out because I don't want to call names. But if you go there, you will see an indigenous Nigerian oil marketer, one-man business, that according to these numbers is lifting 129 trucks every day. More than Total Nigeria. 129. And you know, this is how we have eroded our own economy. We have dug a deep hole in the pockets of the government, and we have bankrupted the state. What is the problem that states are facing? Can we go to the next slide? First is you have dwindling support from the center. As a result of poor financial management, as a result of leakages in the federal government and the state-owned enterprises, very little is left for the states. And I keep repeating, I don't need to, but I keep repeating, I hope you remember that I lost my job in the central bank for making this same point. It is not about a particular party. I have no party. My party is Nigeria. My party is Nigeria. So this is the problem we had going back to 2014. It's the one we continue having. Ashiwaju knows my party is Nigeria. And Okay? Now, look at fact distributions. They're falling by 60%, and they're almost certain to fall again. We got to a point where NNPC was no longer remitting money to FAC, and in fact, borrowing money from the central bank when oil price was high. You know, honestly, that any institution can do this in any country and get away with it, I don't understand. And it has been going on for 2 decades. We're just not serious as a country. We're down to 4.6. Fact. Conceptually, why are states going to cry? Why are states going to suffer? If you're a governor of a state, your costs are tracking the rate of inflation. Your costs are tracking the parallel market rate. But your revenues are tied to an official rate. So when the governor wants to buy something to run his state, he is buying something priced at black market rate. But when he's getting his revenue, the dollars that come to the national coffers, they're being sold at 430. How do you take, for every $1 billion, we sell at 400 naira. When we can sell it at 600, 700 naira, that is 200 billion that should come to the states that has gone into private pockets. It's a transfer of public resources from public hands to private pockets. Nigeria has always been, and it continues to be, a rentier state. The state does not exist for development. The state exists as a site of rent extraction to make those who control the state rich, to turn them into billionaires overnight. That is how the state has always operated. And in 2023, if you have an election, we cannot afford to continue with that trend. Because any continuation of, look at Mali, look at Burkina Faso, look at Guinea-Conakry, look at what's happening with insecurity. If you think it will not happen in this country, you'll be shocked if you continue, you get to a point where you're in a Mali situation. We can't keep pushing the brink. We have to come back. Look at the support. According to the last set of data we have from 2017, only 50% of states generated enough recurrent revenue to cover their wages, overheads, and debt service. And given the fall in FAC, this number is likely to have increased. I think I didn't highlight a point in one of the earlier slides. Let me see which slide it was. I think it's important. I should have highlighted that point. Anyway, okay. Sorry to bring you back, but can you go to slide 9, please? Where I had debts. Slide 9, the blue charts. Today, the cost of servicing debt in Nigeria with the federal government is 2.597 trillion. Whereas revenues were 2.4. This is first half of 2022. In other words, debt service is now 108% of revenue. Every naira the federal government earns, goes to service debt. And it is not enough. It has to borrow to service the debt. And then begin to borrow to pay salary, borrow to pay overheads, borrow to build roads, borrow to build. Let me ask you, what do you think we are leaving our children behind? A mountain of debt. Every generation wants to leave a legacy so that our children and grandchildren will be praying for us and asking God to have mercy on us, not cursing us. You leave them with a mountain of debt. You have not educated them. Money that should go, money that we should put into their education, into their health care, even assuming this fuel subsidy is all genuine, we have taken that money to give ourselves cheap petrol. That is what we are borrowing, to enjoy cheap petrol today so that our children will pay that debt. When we have not invested the money in the education and prepared them to earn and service the debt. And even though we recognize there's a problem, what are we saying? We'll continue paying until June. No plans. We have no plans for changing. Yeah, we see the problem, but we are going to continue. I'm sorry for the next president who comes in on June and says, I'm removing subsidy on day one. I'm sorry for it. I don't know what kind of political stability you're going to have. We have not even started retracing our steps, closing this gap in exchange rates, closing the gap in these inflated subsidies, reducing the subsidy payments. We're going to pile up while we are spending 108% of our revenue on debt service. How are we? Look, countries cry when they're spending 30% of their revenue on debt service. Today, the Caribbean, they're crying. 30, 35%, they're crying. We are spending 100%. We're all laughing. We're having parties. If we don't fix this, we're going to have our children curse us to eternity. So, what do we do with the states? First is to recognize that NMPC is not a cash cow, it's a money pit. Just unbundle it, disband it, continue to implement the PIB properly, and turn them into a properly commercial. And when I say implement, it is not just to set up companies and leave the same people and the same processes and the same system, but with a different name. It means properly implement that act. And then let them pay royalty and taxes. We need to have successful TSA implementation. And here, Kaduna has shown leadership. This is research by Budget. It says Kaduna is the only state to have met the World Bank State Fiscal Transparency, Accountability, and sensitivity scoring criteria for 2 years in a row. And this includes running a functional TSA that covers more than 80% of revenues. But more generally, I think states need to free themselves of federal dominance. You have to free yourselves of relying on the federal government. Just assume that you're not going to get help from the center. Okay? Build your infrastructure. As the Kaduna State Governor said, build your own power supply. Attract your own investors. Educate your children. Create your own jobs. And we're hoping that investors will continue looking below the radar. I gave the example of Lagos and how well it's done. Kaduna is following that path. The state governments need to continue competing so that people look beyond the macro and know that below the radar, there are subnationals that are doing the right thing. And we have to tell that story. As Vice Chair of KADIPA, I'm proud to be associated with KADIPA. And I'm proud to speak about Kaduna anywhere I go. Because even as a Nigerian, I do not want to bring anybody who will be embarrassed. If I see somebody who says he's thinking of something, I say, come to Kaduna. Or come to Lagos. You go somewhere where you have a story that you're not going to regret. And I think every state needs to start taking that up, and that is the only way we're going to give development to the people. We can no longer rely on the center. So I said I would give you numbers. I would let you draw your own conclusions. I have mine. I have been saying them before, but I'm not going to repeat them now. But we can see where from the fiscal side and the monetary side, the challenges that we have, and the decisions that will be taken to correct are going to be very painful decisions. So let me first of all, please request our politicians. You must prepare the minds of Nigerians for difficult decisions. Anybody who tells you that it is going to be easy, please don't vote for him. Because it's either he's lying to you or he does not know what job he's going to get. You cannot with this level of debt service, with this level of collapse in revenue, with this level of poverty, you cannot. And you have to take corrective decisions. Tariffs on the electricity sector have to be corrected. Tariffs in the oil sector have to be corrected. But before we correct that, we have to deal with the opportunities for rent seeking. You have to close off the inflated numbers, the false numbers. And I hope that whoever becomes president in 2023, the first thing they should do is ask NMPC to document and bring evidence for every dollar they took as subsidy. They must give the ships that came, and we can verify from insurance companies if those ships were in Nigeria on that date. You must bring evidence, because that is what the law says. There must be proof. Before you pay subsidy, there must be proof that you brought it in at the price you said you brought it in. Because until we bring credibility and transparency to the management of public finance, no government has the moral right to impose hardship on Nigerians. They have suffered enough. But if we deal with the rent seeking, if we close the gaps, then we can ask Nigerians to make the sacrifice, and they have to make sacrifice. And we have made sacrifices, but we have to make a sacrifice to reset this country. So please, there is no rosy picture. It's going to be difficult. Those who want to contest elections, I wish you all the best, but I hope you prepare your minds that it's not going to be, it will not be a popular job. Populism destroys a nation. You have to take decisions that are unpopular. If every time you take an election, decision is about whether I will win the next election, you will never do the right thing. So we have to take difficult decisions and try to explain to Nigerians as much as possible, but these decisions are absolutely necessary if this country is going to survive. These are my points. I'm going to run out of the country today, as usual, and I don't know what the headlines will be like tomorrow. If there are any questions on this, I have delegated my friend and brother Nasir El-Rufai to answer and give explanations on my behalf. Again, congratulations, Nasir, for an excellent job. Congratulations, Kaduna State, and good luck to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Your Highness, for that wonderful, insightful, really thought-provoking presentation. I think we all enjoyed it and we took a lot from it. As Kaduna State will continue to be an action-taking government, and we keep implementing these policies, and it's not just talk. So thank you so much, Your Highness, for those recommendations. We thank you once again. Please, a round of applause. I would like to recognize and appreciate the presence of the 2023 presidential candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Please, a round of applause for him. I'd also like to recognize the presence of the Governor of Kebbi State, His Excellency Abubakar Atiku Bagudu. A round of applause. And also recognize the presence of the Governor of Jigawa State as well, His Excellency Mohammed Badaru Abubakar. This is to recognize and appreciate the presence of the Honorable Justice MTM Aliyu, Chief Judge of Kaduna State. Now we'll be taking you through our investment journey here in Kaduna State with the hopes that you also appreciate the very deliberate efforts and interventions and policies that Kaduna State has put in place, not only to make the state, but to maintain Kaduna State as the #1 investment destination. So we'll be watching a short video, a documentary on our investment journey. Please sit back and enjoy.
Ni 10,000 ma ban taɓa riƙewa tawa ba tsakanina da Allah. To yanzu ko dai ba 10,000 ba ina sa ran ko hidiman 100,000 wallahi zan ma kaina ita. Kuma ni da nan gurin na same su.
The state government for giving Olam enable environment to come and invest in this state is a great relief for us.
Yanzu prison nawa daya na bayar na ba wata ita ma ta ci arzikin kamfanin tumatir Jos.
To the governor of Kaduna State, a big thank you to him. Tech is probably one of the best ways to get a lot of people out of poverty, and him investing in that will play a huge role in that in years to come.
Inda gwamnoninmu na Arewa gaba daya sun yi tunani irin na gwamnan Kaduna yadda ya yi, wallahi da yanzu ana arewacin kasar nan ba mu sauran talaka. Da kowa ya samu abun yi.
Through various processes of so on that led into his election, the government realized the need to have a one-stop investment center that would lead to attraction of private investment, into Kaduna, and will also help in providing employment. The decision to set up KADIPA was made.
Well, KADIPA started in the governor's conference room and then moved on to a one-room office in the government house where it was set up. I remember even before the law was passed, on the 1st of June, just 2 days after the government administration had come into office, we had our first investment meeting with UAC Properties on the development of the Galaxy Mall. On the 4th of June, a few days later, we had a meeting, that is in 2015, we had a meeting with the Department for International Development, United Kingdom, DFID, where they came in to support us technically across sectors.
When I realized that we're having challenges of interface with some other government agencies, and those challenges by themselves could derail the very essence of what KADIPA was set up to create ease of doing business. And if an investor is going to be having those challenges, then we might as well not have been in existence. And that's how the charter came about. And when I designed it, and brought our management staff to deliberate on it. We all agreed and assessed through also the technical support of DFID then, now FCDO. Now the charter was designed to make sure every agency of government does not pass a specific time limit in either handling documents or in doing what is needful, like let's say for example, Kajis, when you apply for land, how many days should it take for the land to be identified for that purpose within the defined area of use? The charter was designed, presented to the board, and subsequently to the Executive Council, which approved. And the charter was well accepted even by the World Bank.
We saw our investment portfolio grow many folds. We saw the confidence that investors had in the state, and we saw a lot more inquiries about investment opportunities in the state. The state also was ranked #1 in the Doing Business in Nigeria report of the World Bank. This is all because of the efforts of the state and the commitment of the governor of the state in ensuring that Kaduna State became an investment destination of choice.
The targets for Kadipa were very, very lofty. I recall the governor saying that we had to get in $1.6 billion of investments in the next 8 years. And that means $800 million in the first 4 years and $800 million in the second 4 years. Somehow we've been able to triple that. As lofty as these targets were, we have come to pass and we have done even more.
What the state did deliberately is to say from 2021 to 2025, we have a state development plan. It's called the knowledge-based economy. One of the pillars is focusing on the digital economy. What can the state government do to provide that enabling environment for private sector to come in and push this digital economy to the next frontier? What we've done as a state government is launch the SDP, have a deliberate plan overall. We've done what's known as the Technology City, situated in Barna. What that will do for us is to focus or center all these remote workers, all these tech gurus that we have into one cluster. State government will provide the usual security, digital infrastructure, the land itself. This is meant to launch us into the global platform. As far as the next 100 years is concerned with technology, we feel this is going to be a key driver of Kaduna State's economy. Kaduna State has a lot of talent. In fact, when we do this in Kaduna State, it will unlock everything in northern Nigeria and Nigeria as a whole.
Sunana Alhaji Usman Abdullahi, garkuwa Ongwarimi, wanda aka fi sani da AU Abdullahi an son sunan kamfani na kenan. Kafin Olam ta zo, ni ina ɗaya daga cikin manyan manoma na nan arewacin ƙasar nan. Ina noma, ina kuma sai da amfanin gona da ina kaiwa kudu. A wannan lokuta kusan asara muke yi. Amma da Allah ya kawo mana Olam a nan Kaduna aka buɗe ta bisa taimakon Allah, ina tabbatar maka mun samu ci gaba ta ɓangaren noma 100%. Abincin kajin nan da ake ni ina ɗaya daga cikin masu dakon abincin kaji zuwa jihohin Kano, Jigawa, Katsina, Sokoto, Birnin Kebbi, Zamfara, Kano, Kaduna, Jos, Bauchi, Gombe, Hammubi. A kowane mako ban kai abincin kaji ba a wayannan jihohin in dauki tirela 40 zuwa tirela 70 bangare na kenan. Bangare na kenan kuma mun kai kusan mu 100 masu wannan aiki. Ka dubi kowace tirela tana da direba daya, tana da yaran mota guda biyu. Kowace tirela masu sauke kayanta mutum 12 ne. Kowace tirela a ce an sauke tirela 300 a rana. Mutum nawa ka samu a wannan bangare wanda suke cin abinci a wannan wuri.
My name is Gideon Olushola Ajayi. I'm into distributing of day-old chicks, feed, and the rest, and poultry drugs. Before Olam, we have been doing the business, but the business has been, dragging because we have a lot of loss, especially when we are ordering feed chicks from Ibadan. Even the feed, most of the feed comes from those axes. We have challenges like rain, the transportation, all the logistics aspects. We always have challenge, and there's nothing the company will do for us. We bear the loss most at times. Your customers booked for a particular product, but you are not sure whether those products will come here alive. But when Olam came, immediately we order for any product. There and then, we are sure of what is coming. If I ordered for 10,000, 20,000 chicks, they come here alive because, in fact, it was at times less than 1 hour, 2 hours, I've finished distributing. For now, the current staff we have is about 120. It has brought a lot of employment for helping us to invite Olam into Kaduna State. We really appreciate the governor and the entire state, the entire team of Kaduna State.
My name is Femi Shueton. I'm the managing director of FEMA Technology. When Olam came in, they have problem with water treatment. That's why we first came in, when FEMA Technology came in. We started to render them services on how to treat their water, giving them equipment and other things like that. We now come with idea with this green revolution, turning waste to wealth. When I said, look, we will come in, we will manage your waste. We will clean all the farms, collect the mortalities, collect the waste, and go to another, we'll open a factory. We now convert those waste to wealth. Through this program, they are able to employ about 217 youths in Kaduna State.
Sunana Jamila Abdullahi. Ya alhamdulillah. Dan ni yin farko gunnan ni da zan zo ma wallahi dai aka min kuɗin mota. Ban ma da yanda zan yi kuɗin mota in zo gurin. Na zo aka yanka gona aka bamu. Da muka tashi Allah ya taimake mu ya sa mana hannu. Ni na kama kuɗin da ina har tun tashin rayuwa na ma ni ban taɓa kama su ba a yin farko da na yi a nan guriyar. Kai mai muna nan muna zaune kawai maƙotan mu aka ce za a sai da wani gida. Muna yin masara kawai he muka siyar muka cika muka biya wannan gida. Muka zo kuma shekara ta kewayo muka ƙara yin tumatir. Shi ma kuma Allah ya bani 140 ba ɗaya. Muka zo muka ƙara yin kuma wata masaran ita ma haka idan tafi da buhu 7. Ni a gunnan na rike abun da wallahi ni 10,000 ma ban taɓa riƙewa tawa ba tsakanina da Allah. To yanzu ko dai ba 10,000 ba ina sa ran ko hidiman 100,000 wallahi zan ma kaina ita. Kuma ni da nan gurin na same su.
Sunana Jummai Aminu Maraban Jos. Farkon aikin kamfani da dai ni a gida ina sana'ar ɗinki ne. A shekaran da na yi na asu yadda na samu 170. Na ɗauki wannan kuɗi 170 na sai farashi. Na wajen da muke aikin kankara da shi. Na ƙara again tumatir. Shi ma wannan tumatiri na ƙara yi na samu 160. Da na samu 160 sai na ƙaro fresh. Na haɗa su guda biyu. Sai muka ƙara tumatir. A wannan na boss ɗin da muka yi na samu tumatir, kuɗin tumatir dina 210. To alhamdulillah muna godiya ga Allah muna godiya ga kamfani.
Hi, my name is Mercy Marcos and I'm a software engineer at Microsoft. I'm glad that the collab community was here at the time when it was. It was really instrumental to the speed at which I was able to learn and undistracted I was able to learn. And then there was just a community of other people learning there as well. Like we can see actual proof of people who started here at collab and they're working for international companies. I would say that collab has done a really good job with the little that they've had so far. And then for the Kaduna State government, like, I'm glad that they've been very receptive to the height that Collab wants to reach, and they have been very supportive, providing things like infrastructure, providing things like just competitions that people can even participate in and just practice what they're actually learning and actually get to build things that the government would use.
My name is Umar Yusuf. I'm a full-stack developer at Sudo Africa. Collab has a lot of impact on me. And then before Collab, I started alone, and mostly I just go to Google. And one of the things I miss most is a community. So I was working alone, almost always at home with my computers. When I'm stuck, I get to online platforms. Collab gave me that community. And it really helps to see you around like-minded people doing the same thing you are doing. It really encouraged me to keep pushing further. Joining Collab taught me on how modern web applications were built, so I learned a lot from them. And aside that, also, I met my previous and current employers all at Collab.
My name is Demnadi. I am a senior analytics engineer at a data and consulting firm, data and analytics consulting firm called Data Culture. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I did not know how I was going to go about it. Collab allowed me to be able to meet people who are also on similar paths, and that allowed all of us to grow together. It was the foundation that helped me through a lot of ways, taking part in certain events. And it was through those certain events that I met the first person that employed me. And that employment was what actually helped serve as a basis to get this job I got. To the governor of Kaduna State, a big thank you to him for his efforts in expanding the work that Collab is doing. And it seems like he's very interested in tech. And tech is probably one of the best ways to get a lot of people out of poverty. People might not see the benefits now, but years down the line, there definitely will be a return on investment.
I think investments as a whole, we are yet to ascertain the full social impact that it has. These are studies that are ongoing, and we'll be able to publish it very soon.
Please, another round of applause for that really beautiful, inspiring story captured in the documentary. Kaduna is really taking giant strides to ensure that investments are not only attracted into the state, but are also retained and expanded, as you've seen with some of the impact stories shown here. And this is really as a result of the enabling business environment here in Kaduna State. So please, a round of applause to appreciate all the hardworking civil servants, myself included, in Kaduna State. Thank you so much. Now next, we're going to take an address from the MD CEO of Sterling Bank PLC, Mr. Abubakar Suleiman, who will be giving an address on banks, subnational economies, and the quest for resilience against global shocks. So please welcome him to the stage.
Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, I ask for your indulgence to stand on the existing protocol. I know that the time limit available to me is very short, and I don't want to use it in acknowledging the presence of so many excellencies and so many great Nigerians. I was asked for my speech before. Okay, I think we do have a problem here. Okay, I was asked for my speech before the guests started arriving, and I said I had no speech. And the reason for that was I was aware of this, that my boss, and the former Emir, if I got that wrong, I hope not. Okay. I would be so bold as to say Nigeria's greatest living economist. I knew he was going to be speaking, so it was very important that I don't put anything in writing that would be wrong or will contradict what he has presented. It was also said that the Kaduna Investment Summit is not just a summit but a workshop. So my contribution today is in the form of a workshop. With the limited time that I have, I do not want to go over what Kaduna has achieved over 7 years, but I want to start by saying that the job of any government is not to build the economy of the entire country. The job of the government is to catalyze the private sector so that the private sector can build the rest of the country. For 7 years, Kaduna State has been at the forefront of building major economic and social infrastructure. And the benefit of those infrastructure are just beginning to show. I had the opportunity of driving around the state capital yesterday, and I must say that even those who were critics of the government, of the state government, by now cannot possibly drive around this town and remain critics. I highlighted the necessity of turning the state investment into a catalyst because when the state builds a road, it is not the investment in the road that is the object of the state. A road built by the state should attract a tenfold investment in real estate within 24 hours of making that investment. If that tenfold investment doesn't happen, then the state will be required to continue building road into perpetuity and the economy will still not wake up. And what I saw in Kaduna State was private investment finally taking over from where the state has stopped. There are conversations around how when the state is also allocating resources, what kind of return should it worry about? In some cases, people think about the immediate and visible return. In some cases, people think about the immediate and visible return, such as this infrastructure. Those of us who started coming to KadInvest at the beginning understood that this wasn't existing when we started. Today, it is one of the most impressive venues for hosting an event like this in Nigeria. But what I want to address is that there is a missing infrastructure at the subnational level. And that until we identify and fix that missing infrastructure, the effort of the government may not yield the desired result. I've called that the financial services infrastructure. And the reason is that when you plan as a state, you have every right to assume that the financial system is already there, and that when you do the right thing as a state, that financial system would drive growth. But the reality is that the financial system today assumes that Nigeria is one economy. No, Nigeria is one country, but there are multiple economies that exist in Nigeria. And until we start to think about each of the economy with its peculiarities and design the financial services infrastructure for it, it will not be able to support the private sector side of growth that we are looking for. And as someone who has worked in banking in Nigeria for a long time, lived in Lagos, there should be no reason why a state like Kaduna should not be able to attract $1 trillion of the $50 trillion of assets that are currently within the banking system. But when you look at it carefully, I will share some of the reasons why this is not happening. The first part is, when we lend as bankers, we imagine that someone sitting down in the banking hall in Lagos fully understands the way the economies of Kaduna State work. and that when presented with opportunity to bring in capital into Kaduna State, they will be able to take the right decision. But the answer is no, they don't. Even though we all have the same global standard and best practices, even though we have the same complicated risk algorithm, every lending, every credit decision is a local decision. At the end of the day, irrespective of what our analysis tells us, before we part with money, we ask, who knows that man? Who knows that company? Who can attest on their behalf? And when you are far away from a place like this, it's very likely that you don't know enough people who will validate your decision. We also, when we lend, and this is particularly important for a sub-sovereign that is rising, we lend either against the revenue or the future revenue of the state, or we lend against the asset of the state. The challenge is there is a very high level of informalization in the economy of some of these states. And for as long as the economy is informal, what happens is those companies, even though they are viable companies, they are vibrant companies, are not going to be able to access capital from the financial services system. The system is designed for highly formalized companies. And it's not just in terms of companies that are not managed the way we would manage a listed company, for instance. It's also in terms of to what extent can the state be presented? To what extent can people see beyond just the political Kaduna state? When His Excellency, the governor mentioned that 5.3 million Kaduna citizens have now been fully identified, fully prepared, and are now part of the NIN database, that is a very important piece of financial information that should determine the ability of Kaduna State to access capital. But more importantly, it should determine the ability of companies operating in Kaduna State to have access to financial capital for support. But that is not the case today. The third challenge that we must also talk about, and it's a sensitive one, is that there is an unintended delegitimization of the financial assets of many of the sub-sovereign. Let me repeat that. When you look at the banking books of financial institutions today, more than 80% of the assets that stands as collateral and are accepted and acceptable as collateral are from no more than 6 state capitals today and the FCT. What that means is that the rest of the country and the assets that should form the backbone for raising capital in the rest of the country has not been financialized. Sometimes excuses are made like you cannot recover your asset in a particular state, but yet you do not see any correlation between the states that have passed the right laws, that are enforcing those laws, and those that are able to use those assets as collateral. So a very important job that the state must do, for which we as private sector must provide support, is to ensure that every single piece of real estate in Kaduna, every single landed property, become an asset that exhibits the feature of a financial instrument, which means that it is not just a heavy asset that offers you economic return in the long run. It is a financial asset that is liquid, that you can use as a leverage to grow your business or to meet financial need. And this is the kind of development that must happen. And so when we say, how can the sub-sovereign become part of the global financial system? I think the right question is that how can a sub-sovereign become part of the national financial system in the first place? Because we are pursuing financial inclusion, which is trying to get as many people as possible to be part of the payment system. But the reality is that even the best among the states have, as at today, not been fully brought into the national financial system. And therefore, all the capital that is coming into the state is either as a result of the work of KADIPA, bringing in private investors from all over the world, or the state government itself using its strong balance sheet. The case. The private sector within Kaduna State should be able to access a significant amount of capital. I know that they are supposed to provide recommendation or solution, but again, of what use will it be if we don't leave here with at least 1 or 2 things that we can do that will alleviate the problem? The first recommendation that I have forced into my speech is to say, let us collaborate with Kaduna State. Let us create a platform, and the technology already exists. That means that every piece of real estate within Kaduna that has been properly assigned by the government to the people will form part of the financial asset that can be used by businessmen and individuals within the state to access financing on an instant, not short-term, but an instant basis, meaning that when you have a property in this state and you have need for finance, you should not have to wait for 6 months or 1 year to access funding, either for private use or to grow your business. And we offer to be a partner, and by we, I speak on behalf of Sterling, but when I say we offer to be a partner in making sure this gets done. But the second part, the second conversation is, until we domesticate what we have imported, until we domesticate the financial services system that we have taken from the world, we will not be able to provide the financial services infrastructure for the local economy. What do I mean by that? For as long as the decisions around access to credit is being made by branches of financial institutions that are elsewhere, or is being made elsewhere, we will never be able to have access to private sector capital on the scale that we seek. And therefore, with the help of Kaduna State, what I'm proposing is the process of starting a financial institution in Kaduna that is owned by all the major stakeholders in Kaduna, mostly private sector and development finance, that is managed to the best global standard, but with the core objective of attracting capital from impact investors such that that capital can now be leveraged to provide debt to the state, to provide debt to the businesses that are operating in the state and to the individuals that live in the state. So rather than look for 10 billion naira to get as investment in Kaduna, if we could get a 10 billion naira as investment into a financial institution in Kaduna, then that financial institution has the capacity to leverage the 10 billion, and instead of 10 billion, we can now have 50 billion, we can now have 100 billion. And if the success of that platform is demonstrated, there are so many people who are looking to bring capital that will find a safe way to continue to bring that capital into the state. So I'm going to round up by saying, even though the conversation is about how do we make the state, the subnational, resilient given the global financial crisis, the truth is that you are currently largely excluded from the financial system. And it is not exclusion by those who do not have bank account. It is an exclusion by access to capital, by people who deserve to have a higher level of access to capital, or by paying more for capital when businesses of lower quality are paying far less for capital. That is the problem that we must jointly come together and solve. As for the ability of the state itself to attract the required funding for the project that it is on, in my experience, Kaduna State is actually in a position to advise others on how to access capital. The best we can do as private sector partner is to recommit in every way we can that we will support whatever capital exercise the state engages on, and to advise that as much as possible, where it is feasible, the project should be funded as standalone project that doesn't necessarily revert to the balance sheet of the state. Thank you very much. I must appreciate everyone for the time to listen.
Thank you very much, Abubakar Suleiman, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Sterling Bank. Thank you for your invaluable and very distinct contributions and recommendations to the discourse on building a resilient economy. Thank you again for your commitment on behalf of Sterling Bank to continually support Kaduna State in building an investment frontier for everyone. Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point we'll be taking a speech by the Senator representing Kaduna Central Senatorial District and the 2023 APC gubernatorial candidate for Kaduna State. I can tell that he's deeply loved by the applause that is already coming. Let's make deeply loved by the applause that is already coming. Let's make welcome Senator Uba Sani. Thank you.
The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by Honorable Minister of Investment and Trade, Ambassador Mariam Yelwaji Katagun, Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Mala Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, our leader, mentor, and boss. His wife, Hajia Aishatu Umi El-Rufai, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Dr. Hadiza Sabwa Balarabe, Your Excellency, our presidential candidate of the APC, Aswaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and by the grace of God, the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Your Highness, Khalifa Mohammed Sanusi II, the 14th Emir of Kano. The Speaker of the Kano State House of Assembly, the two governors here present, the Governor of Kebbi State and the Governor of Jigawa State, members of the National Assembly, members of Kaduna State House of Assembly, members of Kaduna State Government, investors, partners, businessmen and women, as well as representative organizations here present, ladies and gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I heartily welcome all of you to KadInvest 7.0. I commend our dear leader, Governor Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, and his dynamic team for sustaining KadInvest and elevating it to arguably the best business promotion summit in Nigeria. Our dear state has been rated as one of the best destinations to do business with ease. Even the federal government of Nigeria is learning and copying our ease of doing business policies. Our tax system has been simplified and aligned to meet the needs of both existing and new business concerns. Kaduna State has truly become an investor's haven. Governor Nasir El-Rufai has created and led a team that has implemented a governance agenda that is progressive, developmental, and pragmatic. Malam Nasir El-Rufai tenure in Kaduna State is a testament to the enduring power of leadership to weave a narrative of hope, of competence and commitment to the public good. The road is evident in the billions of dollars that have been pledged or already invested in Kaduna State. Businesses have shrewdly placed their bets on a state of immense potential, led by a man of immense talent and prodigious capacity. The new investments are being supported by a massive infrastructure upgrade through the Urban Renewal Program. The bold experiment in reimagining the management of our major cities through the metropolitan authorities in Kaduna, Kafanchan, and Zaria testify to a mind focused on innovation and sustainability. I'm proud to be a member of this team. First as a political appointee in the first term and as elected senator for Kaduna Central since 2019. As a senator, I have been closely aligned to developmental priorities of Kaduna State government. There is no doubt in my mind that Kaduna State has been put on a sure path toward actualizing its potentials. We must continue to support our existing investors and attract many more to help Kaduna State become the resilient, diversified economic dynamo. The template is there to make this state a major ICT hub, a light manufacturing powerhouse, and the biggest agribusiness cluster in Nigeria. We must continue to assist our farmers to produce more from our well-watered arable land while making a compelling case for our state as a processing center. This is how to create a platform for the steady expansion of jobs and skill for our youth. I wish to thank Malan Nasir El-Rufai and the Kaduna State team for the excellent work done. Our investors already recognize Kaduna State as a business-friendly state. It will remain so in the interest of our people and their welfare. Finally, I wish to assure you all that the legacy of our leader and boss, Malan Nasir El-Rufai, will not just be sustained in the coming years, but will be bolstered to continue to meet our collective needs. Once more, welcome to KadInvest 7.0. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Ubasani. The APC gubernatorial candidate for Kaduna State. Thank you for that presentation and warm welcome. A round of applause again, please. Our next speaker is a very strong personality, a renowned businessman, and a trailblazer when it comes to business. However, unfortunately, he's still in transit, but we're anticipating having him here shortly. In the meantime, I would like to invite his representative, the Group Executive Director at Dangote Group, Mr. Mansour Ahmed, to please come on stage to give us a speech. A round of applause, please.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Your Excellencies, other Excellencies here present, our esteemed Khalifa Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, the second, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to stand on the protocol ably laid down by the last speaker. I have just two short messages. One, indeed, is from Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who has asked me to extend his profound appreciation to the governor and government of Kaduna State for inviting him to participate in this KAD 7.0. Secondly, is to apologize for his being late in arrival. Indeed, in the morning, he had planned to leave Lagos. Unfortunately, a problem developed with the aircraft, and obviously it needs to be replaced or to find a different aircraft. He called me at about 7 o'clock in the morning and said, you must go to Kaduna and extend my apologies. And if I'm not able to come, extend a goodwill message from the group, the Dangote group. But let me also apologize for getting here late, because although I left Abuja at just after 7 o'clock, after we've spoken, It has taken me almost 3.5 hours to get here. And I can say the only reason is because that road construction was not under the auspices of His Excellency Nasser El-Rufai. If it was, that road would have been finished about 3 years ago or even earlier. But nonetheless, let me extend our apologies, and let me also extend the second message, which is first to congratulate the Governor Nasser El-Rufai and the team for 7 years of excellence. I believe that what we have witnessed over the past 7 years, particularly those of us who have attended all or most of these summits, is indeed the clear evidence that indeed things can get done and get done well if they are done with excellence and with commitment and with vision and courage. 7 years of promotion of a strong partnership between the public sector and the private sector to grow the state economy, to create wealth, not just for individuals, but also for the citizenry and the country. Indeed, the eminent distinguished Sanusi talked about two different types of private sector, and indeed several other comments indicate there are two different types of private sector operators. The first set are private sector operators who invest their money, work hard, make profit, create wealth for themselves, and create wealth for the citizenry. There's another group of private sector operators who collect rent, create wealth for themselves, and impoverish the rest of us. I believe that the partnership we've seen in Kaduna State over the past 7 years is partnership between a committed state government, committed to the growth and prosperity of the state, with a private sector of the first order. The private sector that is willing to invest and willing to create wealth for itself and to create wealth for the citizenry across the hierarchy. I believe this is what has happened in Kaduna State, and we have seen the evidence here. Let me therefore seize this opportunity to congratulate on behalf of Alhaji Aliko Dangote and the Dangote Group as a whole, the achievement that has been displayed not only today, but indeed over the past 7 years in all the summits. We have seen that it is possible to promote and generate investment on a large scale by simply creating an open economy, a transparent economy that enables the private sector to see opportunities, to see those opportunities, and indeed to invest to capture those opportunities. We have seen that wealth can be created, economies can grow by a leadership that is focused on ensuring that the right thing is done for the purpose of the majority of the people of the state. We have seen that indeed, with commitment and courage and innovative management, internally generated revenue can be significantly increased without necessarily increasing the rate of tax, simply by creating a wider source of taxation, as we have seen. We have seen a situation where partnership, genuine partnership, can be developed by being open, by being transparent, and by being attentive to the needs of investors. This is what has been happening in Kaduna State over the past 7 years. Clearly, growing your economy through investment is something that we have accepted. In fact, the economists, and we have the Nigerian chief economists here, have shown that emerging economies have grown their economies by investing perhaps around 25% of their GDP. Over the past 7 years, we have seen investment in Kaduna State of over $4 billion. I think that's basically the private sector investment. If you add the capital investment that has been made by the state, we are approaching about perhaps 10% of the GDP as investment per annum. And this is clearly on the road to achieving the internationally accepted 25% investment. I have no doubt that with the commitment that we have seen in the government and the leadership of Kaduna State, this 25% is well within the purview of the Kaduna State government. Let me therefore again congratulate the governor. And perhaps one thing that we have not spoken about here is that one of the key attributes of this government, of the achievement that we have seen, is the creation of strong institutions focused on achieving results for the people. Institutions like KADIPA. I believe that one of the legacies that His Excellency Nasser El-Rufai is leaving behind is indeed the creation of such institutions. And on behalf of the group, hope that this legacy will be maintained. I hope we'll continue to create strong institutions that will anchor the state development, that will enable investors from everywhere in the world, both domestic and outside, to actually come and do business. I think that this is what ease of doing business is all about. This is what ease of doing business is supposed to do. To remove all the impediments to investors, to support their effort, to guide them in terms of what they need to do, to ensure that that investment is consistent with the needs of the government and the needs of the people. So, Your Excellency, Mr. Governor, on behalf of Alhaji Aliko Dangote and indeed the Dangote Group as a whole, let me commend you for this effort and your team, and let me wish you successful transfer of your legacy to the person that will sustain that legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Mansour Ahmed, the Group Executive Director from Dangote Group, for representing Alhaji Aliko Dangote. You know, today has been very fascinating for me, and I think one thing that has stood out for me is the fact that we have received several accolades . Beg your pardon? Thank you, and I apologize for that break in transmission. So I was saying that one thing that has stood out for me today is the fact that Kaduna State has received several accolades based on their contributions and, you know, just having an investor-friendly environment. Again, we had several accolades that were rolled out from the 14th Emir of Kano, His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, whom we know does not speak anything that is not true. So again, let's celebrate Kaduna State for just being investor-friendly, one, for their constant development. At this point, I'd like to recognize and appreciate the arrival of Alhaji Aliko Dangote today at KadInvest 7.0. A renowned business leader, a national and global treasure who continues to put Nigeria and Africa on the world map. Thank you very much, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, for joining us today at KadInvest 7.0. I think this shows his commitment and support to Kaduna State, because despite everything that happened that could have prevented him from coming here today, he first sent a representative who's ably represented him, Engineer Ahmed. Thank you very much for representing Alhaji Aliko Dangote, and he has made it here himself in person. Again, we recognize your presence and we thank you for joining us today at KadInvest 7.0. At some point during this event, we'll be launching some initiatives and signing some papers. But just before then, we would listen to His Excellency, the Governor of Kebbi State, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu. Can we please make welcome His Excellency, the Governor of Kebbi State, who is here present with us at KadInvest 7.0. Thank you.
Your Excellency, my brother, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malan Nasiru Ahmed El-Rufai, and his dear wife that is here, Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor, my brother, the Governor of Jigawa State, and the presidential candidate of our party, Aswaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the 14th Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, the Alhaji Aliko Dangote, honorable ministers that are here, let me, for want of time, respectfully recognize all those who have been earlier recognized. And good afternoon, everyone. Let me congratulate Malan Nasiru El-Rufai and the team for yet again this successful KadInvest 7.0. I was one of those who was here for the first one, and I've been here a number of times, and I've seen the evolution. And even though I've been called to give a goodwill, particularly on behalf of all of us in the All Progressive Governors Forum, I note the opportunity given by Emir Sanusi Lamido Sanusi that if you have any questions about his presentation, we have the liberty to ask the co-author, Malan Nasiru Ahmed El-Rufai. And indeed, I have a question. So I don't know, time will not permit me to ask the question. Maybe I will send it to you. And because while we walked in here with our presidential candidate, I thought we just came in at the point when the Emir was literally scaring all the politicians seeking office. But my remark, which is important because I felt it's important to say it, particularly in view of a presidential candidate and our gubernatorial candidate being here, is that indeed countries quite often go through challenging times. And when they go through challenging times, policy making can either lag behind in response or too aggressive or too little. We have seen it around the world, and Nigeria is not different. In 2008, as a result of expansion of credit by the banking sector, we have seen, and development in the international economy, how our banking sector was threatened, that we have to find about 3.5 trillion naira, which is about $23 billion of then, in order to correct, some will say, the bad behavior of bankers, or maybe the misjudgment of bankers. And that consequence is still what is being felt today. One of the charts presented by the very brilliant Emir that God has blessed us with showed a remarkable, or rather a profound drop in distributable revenue from 13.6 billion US dollars in 2014 to $4 billion in 2016. How will have anyone responded when your income all of a sudden become 1/3 of what it was? How did Mala Nasiri El-Rufai respond in Kaduna? Mala Nasiri El-Rufai responded, and maybe that goes for the nation, by borrowing more money and instilling more fiscal discipline. But borrowing is not a bad thing. That borrowing has created the infrastructure for additional income and is worth anything that has been spent, and that is supporting what we are celebrating today. The creation of an environment, which we pray will continue to produce future revenue stream to such an extent that what was borrowed does not matter. Equally, for the nation, we responded in similar ways. I'm not justifying any behavior, but I'm saying the world has seen countries responding in likewise like Nigeria. We have seen quantitative easing, which is literally printing money by the central banks around the world, industrialized world, and many countries around the world, particularly those who have experienced similar situations like Nigeria. By the way, the 3.5 trillion AMCOM money was also printed by the central bank in order to solve a problem. So it's not really a bad thing. It's a question of how do we intend to exit it, and whether it is creating the platform for a great, but I'm not here to respond. I'm just putting my question publicly to Mala Nasiri El-Rufai so that he will help, and maybe that will less scare our politicians to know that we are not alone, but we can do things differently. And as we have seen by evidence from Kaduna, when we do things differently with brilliance, with a team, with passion and commitment, it can translate into better outcome. I congratulate my brother, I congratulate all the team, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Abubakar Atiku Bagudu. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, at this point we will now listen to the Governor of Jigawa State, His Excellency Muhammad Badaru Abubakar. A round of applause for him as he graces the stage today at KadInvest 7.0.
Your Excellency, my brother, elder brother, Governor Nasru El-Rufai, Your Excellency, my twin brother, Governor Atiku Bagudu, my sister, the wife of my elder brother, but happens to be my younger sister, Ajiya Ome, Allah ya taimaki sarki, the 14th Emir of Kano, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, the chairman of Dangote Group, our pride, the gubernatorial candidate of APC, Senator Obasani, my sister, the deputy governor of Kaduna State. Forgive me for the protocol mix-up. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I stand on the well-established protocol. Governor Atiku Bagudu have raised issues Now, that emboldened me to say what we need today are courageous leaders, are leaders that will dam the political risk that Mala El-Rufai is famous of taking. He has introduced a lot of policies, programs that are initially not popular, but they stand the test. And despite those challenges, despite those political risks he took, he's returned elected. So which means if you do a very good job with the fear of God and sincerity, you will always be rewarded. In Aswaju, even though it's not time to campaign, I see such leaders. He's a person that takes so many risks to reposition Lagos at that time, similar to what El-Rufai is doing in Kaduna State. And he has distinguished himself as a leader that takes political risks and turns them to political capital. So, Your Royal Highness, the figures there, yes, they are scary, but that is why we are men. To face challenges, deal with them, and move on. And I'm sure we have strong men that will deal with this situation and change them for the better and for the country. But thank you very much for reminding us, and thank you very much for us to know that there is need to tell Nigerians the situation we are in and what they should expect. Now, coming back to Malam, he's a strong filler in the community of Governors Forum. Respect and collaborate with Malam. But us in Jigawa, he's our best friend. He's our senior brother. We share a lot in common. We do a lot in common, except the political risks, decisions that I don't have the lever to take. But we collaborate a lot, and we thank him a lot for the guidance, advice, and support for Jigawa State development. I'm very, very impressed with the candidates. KadInvest have been very, very successful. But it is successful because we have a very, very dedicated leader in Malam Nasir El-Rufai. I have course to do a lot of assignment with him, a lot of national assignment with him. And he always do it with passion and put a lot of time and energy to make sure the right thing is done. And for all he said, let's look at our people, our people, our people, our people. That is my Nasir El-Rufai. Your Excellency, I will want to also thank you for supporting somebody that I believe will continue from where you stop, and he will be guided and take advice to do even better for Kaduna State. I know at one time it was difficult, but again, the Malam I know, not afraid of taking the right decision, whatever the consequence might be. We thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you all for the support you are giving to Kaduna State But investors, remember, when you invest in Kaduna, there is a little sister just close to Kano that need investment too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Governor of Jigawa State, Muhammad Badaru Abu Bakar. Thank you very much again for your kind words to Kaduna State. Indeed, today we celebrate Kaduna State and her achievements over the past couple of years. But much more than that, we celebrate an exceptional leader that has made this happen together with his cabinet. Please let's celebrate the Governor of Kaduna State one more time today. Thank you. Thank you for your visionary leadership, Malam Nasser El-Rufai. As we move on today, we'll take our first plenary very shortly. We'll take some signings, very critical signings. However, at this point, Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to now make welcome the former Governor of Lagos State and the APC presidential candidate for 2023, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for his speech today at KadInvest 7.0. Let's make him welcome with a warm round of applause. Thank you again for the standing ovation.
El-Rufai, and to see me up to this stage again, I say thank you. Thumbs up for it. Your Excellency, the Governor, being a visionary governor that you are, Malam El-Rufai, we are proud to be associated with what you are doing and the future you set up for Kaduna State and for the entire country. Thank you very much. Our First Lady, who had endured so many absent and lonely nights because the man is busy doing the nation's job. Thank you very much. We are very proud of you. The wife of the governor. My sister representing the president, Ambassador Mariam Yawali Katagun, thank you. Your Excellency, our friend and my colleague who are here with me, the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, His Excellency Atiku Bagudu, and the governor, Abu Bakar Badaru, I salute you. Our brother the Khalifa Lamido Sanusi Lamido, Your Eminence. We pray that you continue to live long, enjoy and happiness and good health. My dear brother, industrious and hardworking, Aliko Dangote, who had redrawn the map of African continent, an investment and opportunity, and get so many people engaged, set many nations on the path of transparency and good governance. Thank you for being here. We won't penalize you for being late. There are so many ways that you are here alone. It's great enough. I've listened to Ubasani. It looks like it is tomorrow. Same today. Then we go back to a great mind who has identified Ubasani. We are talking here about development, construction of great roads, urban renewal, and others. That is the trait of leadership, not the practice of leadership in itself. Because no matter how many skyscrapers, no matter how many steel and metals, no matter how much of construction you build, if you have not built a good successor and good human beings, you've built nothing. Thank you, El-Rufai, for giving us a good man coming. We are with you. So we are servicing our tomorrow today. It is a great honor for me to be invited to give a speech on this occasion. And it is a great pleasure to listen to you. First, run into the storm of Khalifa. Let me assure the audience, as I stand before you, we recognize their problems, the twist and turn of democracy, the hill and valley of the economic changes. But what we have in Nigeria, in this country, is confidence. They can do, they will do, the ability to surmount all problems, correct action, and set the country path on the path of prosperity. I am APC candidate. All problems on those data, I give you a short time that they'll be correct. For us, this time, the Deputy Governor, please forgive me, and the Speaker, please forgive me. I would like to congratulate Kaduna State on this special occasion, the 7th edition of Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit. The theme for this year, building a resilient economy, is very timely and appropriate in a period of uncertainty in the global economy. It is important that we pursue a path of economic independence and insulation from the global headwind. I am particularly happy to be in an economic summit such as this. It reminds me when I started as the governor of Lagos, the Hingbeti Summit, more than 20 years ago. Nigeria needs it. As soon as 2023 is done, we're still going to have summits. To make governance easy. For thinking and doing. Nigeria needs thinkers and doers. And that is, I'm openly begging Nasir El-Rufai not to run away for additional degree excuse. He's going to Cairo, PhD and everything. There are lots of educated relics. We are not going to let you run away. Your vision, creativity, and resiliency in turning a rotten situation to a bad one is necessary at this critical time. That is why we are here today. Therefore, I'm sure that under the able leadership of this governor, Nasir El-Rufai, the leadership of the CADPAC, and the subsequent administrations in Kaduna will be very successful once the path is straight. These states will be turned into a rapid job creation state. To you, the Kadunians, be sure of the success of this state. A vibrant private sector is a prerequisite for a functional state, play a critical role in the mobilization of capital, expertise, and innovation for the creation of economic opportunities and employment. This is why it is important for the government to give maximum support and incentive to the private sector. Thank you for doing so. In this slide, I bring in Buhari's administration. President Buhari's administration introduced a number of measures targeted at promoting private enterprises, businesses, including the repeal and reenactment of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, KAMA, of 2020. The passage of the Finance Act of 2021, as well as the implementation of over 100 initiatives to improve ease of doing business in one day. I stand before you. You cannot harvest corn the day this maize is planted. We are on the right path, and we will build a nation, since we believe in ourselves that we are extremely resilient and ready to develop. There must be active agreement between all the arms of government for the rule of law to prevail. It is critical for judiciary to retain its autonomy and independence. That's judicial reform, which is going on. I want to be elected the president, right? So let me say, under my stewardship, the federal government will build on the efforts of the current administration to review, amend, and enact the relevant laws that will engender rule of law. My administration, I'm confidently telling you that I will win. With your support. And I know you are very, very supportive of me. I know I'm at home here. We will continue to prioritize this restoration of peace and security across all our territory. I assure you, no inch of this country will be considered to banditry and armory. We will fight it together. We will be committed to introducing cross-sector initiatives. Another confidence note, under my leadership, the government will place great emphasis on the use of counterinsurgency doctrine and strategy by our military. We will continue to train and equip our gallant forces and security personnel with the resources, gear, equipment, and all technology necessary to eliminate crime in our society. It might not be to zero, but your life will be secured. We will prioritize, again, the ease of doing business, opportunity in infrastructure. And I am glad that Aliko is here. They are doing so. Collective efforts, investment and reinvestment in infrastructure, including network of pipelines, including power stations and transmissions and distribution networks, our sea and airport, our rail network and other vital infrastructures will take our priority. Nigeria will succeed and grow to prosperity, I assure you. Again, another evidence of confidence. I will marshal a team of most talented Nigerians, men and women. And I've seen the example of great youths here today. They are on the path to achieve double-digit economic growth within a couple of years. We will do this through coordinated and set of policies in our key sectors. We will champion an efficient government that will eliminate revenue leakages across all federal government areas, leveraging technology, which will be increasingly embedded into government operations. If you leave me here, I will continue to campaign. But thank you, dear brother Nasir. Make a promise. We won't let you run away from the country. That's the only way I will leave this podium. Where is the promise? You make the promise.
I promise, even on a part-time basis.
Let's all have our seats. Okay. When he's ready. Let's all settle down after that very refreshing remark by the presidential candidate, All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Thank you for the kind words, and most importantly, thank you for gracing KadInvest 7.0. We really appreciate your presence, and I can see a lot of promises going on. Very nice to see. Thank you once again. We'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is launch of ease of doing business initiatives. Handover of declaration of Green Economic Zone as a special economic zone or free trade zone status and operational license from NEBSA.
We're now approaching a very critical part of KadInvest 7.0, and we want everyone to be a part of this. So our distinguished guests, please take your seats as we will now be commissioning and signing. Should I? Our very distinguished guests would like to crave your indulgence. Please take your seats. We are now getting close to a very critical and I dare say a high point of KadInvest 7.0 before we officially take our first plenary for today, which has very eminent speakers and distinguished business leaders. You don't want to miss that, so please take your seats as we continue with KadInvest 7.0. Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, can we please take our seats as we now move over to the handover of declaration of Green Economic Zone as a special economic free trade zone status and operational license from NEBSA to His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, but we will only commence that once we are all seated. This is a very high point of KadInvest 7.0. So again, I'd like to crave your indulgence to please take your seats. And just to reiterate that KadInvest 7.0 is happening live at the Metaverse. We are the first subnational in the Nigerian history to host an investment and economic summit in the Metaverse. So if you'd like to explore and experience this live here, you can go to the back. We have Gray Hub who will help you to navigate the process. And if you're joining virtually, you can also go to kadinvest.live, click on Metaverse to have an immersive experience of everything happening here. We promise you, you're not missing anything because you have an immersive experience of the virtual reality of everything happening here. Again, Kaduna State continues to blaze the trail. We'll move on very shortly, but we want to ask everyone to please take your seats This is a very critical point today at this occasion, but we won't go on without everyone's attention, and we would like to ask and plead, I respectfully plead that we take our seats. Thank you. Very distinguished guests, we would like to continue with this ceremony, but we want you to please take your seats. Please take your seats so we can continue with this ceremony. Thank you very much. We will have the time to network and take photos, numerous photos right after the session, but please let's take our seats respectfully so that we can continue with this occasion. Thank you. All right, to coordinate the handover of declaration, and it's very critical to mention that this is the first free zone in Kaduna State. It's a green industrial park that promotes a green economy, especially as we actively in Kaduna State take climate change actions. To join the governor on stage, please let's make welcome the Managing Director, Nigerian Export Processing Zones Authority, NEPZA, Professor Adesoji Adesuba. Thank you very much. We'd also have the President of KK Kingdom Group, Khalifa Naziru Abdullahi. Please join the governor on stage and also join the Managing Director of the Nigerian Export Processing Zones Authority as we officially sign this declaration. Can we please have distinguished Senator Ubasani please join them on stage to officially receive this document and be a part of the handover. Thank you. Can we please clear the front aisle? Please, let's clear the front aisle. Take your seats, very distinguished guests, and let's focus on the stage to witness what's happening right here.
Government continues to reach new milestones in its drive to not only attract investments, but to maintain its #1 spot. Authorities regulations, which will be conducted by the Director General of the authority. These regulations its detailed framework for
Your
the
Excellency,
standard of operation.
Please stop the video, thank you.
And my boss is more than my boss. I've always followed your footsteps after I worked where you laid the institution, PPA. We are very happy at what is happening in Kaduna State. And as a professor of investment promotion, I must say your IPA is the best in the country, and we use it as a model everywhere we go. Let me use this opportunity to congratulate you, sir. This is also an achievement, and I'm happy it's happening in your time. The establishment of the Green Economic Zone, the first special economic zone so designated by the president in Kaduna State. It's very important, sir, that we, like you are a doer, and I'm happy by God's grace, the next governor is also here. He's the one who will implement this. We all go to Dubai. I think we all go to Dubai every time, and we love Dubai the way it is. But Dubai is not UAE, it's not the country. Dubai is a special economic zone. In Nigeria, we have about 44 of them. Out of those 44, more than 50% are in Lagos. That's over $18 billion investments in Lagos. And NEBSA is 30 years today. And in those 30 years, the federal government, they have been able to establish only 2 economic zones. But under this government, we have established 3 further economic zones. Sir, I've asked the incoming to be here to also borrow from what Lagos is doing. Lagos has been able to accommodate those economic zones. We have so many other states. I'm glad the governor of Jigawa is here. I'm coming to see you, sir. You have to revive that your economic zone. The governor of Calabar, they have to have, of Cross River State, they have to have a clear understanding of what a special economic zone is. There are 5,400 in the world, 1,500 in China, only 280 in Africa, of which we have 44 in Nigeria. So we can make it happen. It's happening in Eko Atlantic, it's happening in Lagos Free Zone. So coming here to Kaduna State gives me great pleasure, knowing that I'm coming to my senior brother's state and knowing that it can happen here. Now we have some initiatives that we are going to work with you on. Security, the federal government just recently established the Special Economic Zone Security Unit. And then you will now, from next year, be able to assess the capital market for investments coming into that place. But you must make sure that it works. The only way you can make sure it works is to understand that it is separate from the local economy. It's a different zone. So what obtains here is tax-free. So most states don't understand that. So a clear understanding of the act is a country within a state. So you have to understand that, sir. And it can make a tremendous impact in your economy. Thank you very much, sir. So it's indeed on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria that I present the first such zone. Is a green economic zone to His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State. Prior to now, we used to give a license for 1 year. But during my time, I think 1 year is too short to do anything. So this license is for them to start establishment for the next 3 years, after which we shall now renew it for maybe 10 years. Thank you very much, sir. And we will continue to work with you to ensure that this zone comes to fruition. Thank you. And let me use my brother, Khalifa, who has been a great promoter. He's always on my neck. And congratulations. Yeah. Yes, it's congratulations.
Thank you very much, the MD of NEBSA. On behalf of the government and people of Kaduna State, we appreciate the support that we got in establishing this green economic zone. It's a special economic zone that will produce for export edible oils and textiles, garmenting, and so on. And we've already got investors interested in being part of that green economic zone. It is a PPP. The company KK Kingdom is the prime developer, and the Kaduna State government contributed the land and some of the infrastructure. We thank you very much for this, and I assure you that you will not be disappointed. My successor, by the grace of God, and the deputy governor will ensure that this thing comes to fruition. I want to use the opportunity to take the excuse of the summit for me to take my leader and our presidential candidate, Asuaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to Zaria to pay a courtesy call on the Emir of Zazzau. The deputy governor will take over our roles from here, with your permission, your excellencies, all of you. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to Kaduna State on receiving the handover of the first free zone in the state. Congratulations, and thank you to NEBSA for your kind approval and for the 3 years approval that we have just received.
To reach new milestones in its drive to not only attract investments, but to maintain its #1 spot as the investment destination of choice. The following activities further push the envelope for this. First, we start with the unveiling and the
welcome participants to KadInvest 7.0, the 7th edition of the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit. This annual event has helped demonstrate that KadInvest has showcased the economic prospects of Kaduna State and the business credentials.
Kaduna State's economy is mostly agricultural, with the sector employing about 42% of the workforce across 1.3 million households, most of whom are into small-scale or subsistence farming. The state holds the aces as the largest producer of maize, tomato, ginger, and soya beans in the country, and the second largest producer of rice, availing huge potentials for investment. The advent of the Nasser El-Rufai administration rejuvenated the need to showcase these potentials in the agricultural sector and its competitive advantages amongst its peers. The resultant effect of this brought about quite